Chapter 1452. Nianj received his gaze and realized something. Her face heated up, and she quickly retracted her hand. I'm talking about those people just now. Are they here to cause trouble for you? They're all holding weapons in their hands. As Nianj spoke, she glanced behind him, and realized that those people still did not chase after her. Strange, weren't they here to cause trouble for him? Which eye of yours saw those people looking for me? Qin Sighting retracted his hand, that she had already let go of. He placed one hand in his pocket, and looked at her with clear eyes. I saw them walking toward you, and as soon as you came out they surrounded you. I just happened to walk out. We were just passing by. Qin Sighting was expressionless. Right now, he was standing on the side of the road, and she was already standing with 1 foot below. He was originally much taller than her, and now he looked down at her. Seeing that she had run to the tip of her nose with just a few steps, he narrowed his eyes, as though something in the night sky had suddenly blocked the original starlight. Even if you really came to look for me, why did you suddenly run over? Nianj was momentarily speechless. She said she wanted to protect him? It seemed like she was overestimating herself, and would even be mocked for watching too many television dramas. Did she think that a little girl like her could handle any situation? But why did she rush over at that time? If she said that it was because he was good-looking, what she would receive would not be the occasional interaction between his deskmates. She would probably be treated coldly again. After all, even she felt that it was a little too rash. Besides, he was a man. Why should she have the mentality to protect him? She did not speak, and just stood on the spot to look at him. As he was tall, she had no choice but to raise her head to look at him. The sunlight shone from behind him. Although the boy was standing with his back to the light, she could not see him clearly. At the very least she could see his eyes. In the reflection, there seemed to be her. Haven't you considered if you'll be injured? Qin Sighting asked. Nianj didn't know how to explain, so she decided not to. I didn't think too much about it. Didn't think about it? Qin Sighting's eyes were cold and clear. Miss Sure, no matter what happens to the Qin family, if something happens to you here, I'm afraid it won't be that easy for us to get away with it. If you're injured and disfigured, will your parents let it go? You know I'm from the Sure family. I thought you didn't know anything about me. Qin Sighting was indifferent. When you sit beside me and introduce yourself, I can hear you. But you didn't respond to what I said to you when I was beside you, so you could hear me. Nianj looked at him. Her eyes were bright and pure. To put it simply, she was reminding him how sincere she was when she sat by his side. To put it bluntly, she was scolding him for pretending to be deaf. Qin Sighting glanced at her again, and turned to leave without saying anything. You're leaving just like that? He stopped and turned back to look at her. Otherwise, at least I saved you just now. Qin Sighting's indifferent eyes moved slightly, but he still looked indifferent. The slight change in expression on his face was clearly because of her so-called saving him. What I'm saying is, I risked my life to save you just now because we're deskmates. Regardless of whether it's a misunderstanding or not, my heart is good. You can't be so cold. You have to give me some kind of response. Qin Sighting looked at her silently for a while, as though he couldn't understand her train of thought. However, at this moment, there was already a commotion at the school gate. From the sound, it was obvious that the people inside had already started fighting. This confirmed that Nianj had indeed misunderstood. That group of people had indeed wanted to take advantage of the fact that there were no security guards, and the mailroom master at the door to barge in and fight. Coincidentally, Qin Sighting had come out at that time. Nianj took advantage of the chaos to walk to his side. Looking at the man who was a head taller than her, she raised her hand and gently tugged on his sleeve. Qin Sighting was already used to her little action of tugging at his sleeve. Even if he didn't accept it, he had never wanted to accept it. After all, they had been deskmates for 3 weeks. His gaze shifted an inch toward her. Seeing that he did not immediately turn around and leave, but at least paid attention to her. Even if he did not speak, he would not treat her as if she did not exist. Nianj smiled at him. Usually, a chauffeur will pick me up at this time. Today my chauffeur Uncle Qin has applied for leave. It's meaningless for me to go back alone. We've been deskmates for a while. Why don't we take this opportunity to have a meal together? Qin Sighting's expression did not change. He only glanced at her indifferently and listened to her continue to find excuses. Actually, my parents are busy with the company abroad. I live alone in High City, so I live near the school. Zhao Xiaoqing left first today. I haven't eaten yet. Qin Sighting looked at her and suddenly smiled. The moment Shi Nianj was mesmerized by his smile turned into a cold smile. Then, he indifferently retracted his smile and pulled his sleeve out of her hand mercilessly. He stuffed one hand back into his trouser pocket and left with the other holding his shoulder bag. Shi Nianj stood behind him and looked at him. She sighed. She clearly knew that it was impossible to eat. What was wrong with her brain? Even if it was just a suggestion to walk together, how could she agree to eat? Just as Shi Nianj stood on the spot dejectedly and did not chase after him, she was somewhat melancholy considering whether she should eat outside or return to Lishui Villa tonight. Qin Sighting, who had already walked more than 10 steps away from her, suddenly stopped in front of the black commercial car. It was the car that Shi Nianj found familiar. It was the car she had seen last time, when she helped buy the medicine for cholecystitis. The car had just stopped in front of Qin Sighting. He did not even take a second look before turning back. The moment he turned back, he saw that Shi Nianj was still standing there with her eyes wide open. She looked at him blankly. In fact, she was considering where to eat, sweet, salty, or spicy. Before Shi Nianj could pull herself back from her attention, the tall and thin boy had already approached quickly. He stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. He turned around and took her away in the opposite direction of the school. Shi Nianj's expression was shocked. Before she could even return to her senses, she looked at the person who had left and returned. She then lowered her head to look at her wrist. Even though it was only her wrist, there was still the warmth of his palm. It was so real that Shi Nianj's face was instantly filled with question marks and exclamation marks. Chapter 1453. Even when she was brought into the crowded street near the school, Shi Nianj had yet to return to her senses. When she finally returned to her senses, the warmth on her wrist had already left. She lowered her head to look at her hand, and then at the indifferent boy. Seeing that Qin Sighting's expression was much colder than before, and then seeing her dumbfounded expression, his handsome brows moved slightly. He then looked at her wrist, where he had held it earlier. Is your hand stiff? He looked at her hand, that seemed to be suspended in midair, and asked coldly. Shi Nianj abruptly lowered her hand and blinked. No. Qin Sighting did not say more. He returned to his senses, and looked at the restaurants behind him. This street was mostly suitable for students to buy. There were many restaurants of various sizes. Although they were not too luxurious, it was still possible to find a clean restaurant. He said, "Didn't you say you haven't eaten? What do you want to eat?" Shi Nianj looked at him. The hand that she had just put down quietly reached behind her back and pinched her other hand. After confirming that it would indeed hurt, and that everything in front of her was real, she quickly said before Qin Sighting became impatient or regretful, "Anything is fine." Qin Sighting glanced at her thin appearance under her school uniform. His gaze shifted away from the beef noodle shop behind her. He turned back and saw a restaurant with stir-fried dishes. He turned around and walked over. Under his silence, Shi Nianj understood and quickly followed. After entering the shop, she saw that there were already 2 tables of students eating. However, the students from the other schools nearby did not know each other and did not interfere with each other. Qin Sighting walked to the quiet table inside and put down his black shoulder bag. When he looked back, he saw that she had already quickly followed him and signaled the waiter to give her the menu. When she received the menu, Shi Nianj was still in a daze. Earlier, he had clearly rejected her. Why did he suddenly turn around and treat her to a meal without saying a word? She raised her head to look at him. At this moment, Qin Sighting's phone rang. Not wanting to disturb him from answering the call, she quickly ordered 2 drinks and 2 light dishes from the waiter. She then asked him to leave first. She planned to ask him what he wanted to eat after he answered the call. However, after she finished ordering, she realized that Qin Sighting did not answer the phone. The waiter had already walked far away. When Shi Nianj sat down, she heard his phone ring again. Qin Sighting sat down opposite her and took out his phone. She didn't know if he had turned it off or muted it. Before she could see clearly, she saw him throw his phone to the side and not look at it again. "Aren't you going to answer it?" Shi Nianj asked. Qin Sighting did not answer. He picked up the lemon water that the waiter had just poured for him and took a sip. The good-looking boy's clean and well-defined fingers held the transparent glass. No matter how one looked at it, this scene was moving. Even when he put down the glass, he did not seem to have any intention of answering her or answering the phone. Shi Nianj could sense that he was not particularly sincere in treating her to a meal. Earlier, when the car stopped in front of him, he suddenly turned around. Now that he was sitting here with her, he was probably just taking advantage of the situation. Shi Nianj did not ask any more questions. She could only pick up the cup in front of her and drink some water. This lemon water should have been freshly brewed this afternoon. The taste was still very sweet and sour, stimulating the taste buds, but it could make her more awake and confirm that this was not a dream. "By the way, I only ordered 2 light dishes. I don't know what flavor you like, so I didn't order it. Go tell the waiter what you want to eat. After all, we've already sat down. Even if it's perfunctory, we can't waste time like this. Anyway, we have to eat dinner," Shi Nianj said softly. She could feel that Qin Sighting was not in a good mood. She did not know what was going on between the Qin family or his mother and him, so she could not ask around. She could only use other topics to divert his attention and ease her excitement and nervousness. Qin Sighting glanced at her again. "Even if you know it's perfunctory, can you eat it with a clear conscience?" "Why can't I? Even if it's 10 bowls, I can eat it." Shi Nianj's eyes were smiling. She was calm and fearless. She was very sincere and straightforward. Qin Sighting snorted indifferently and waved for the waiter to come over. After taking the menu and asking a few questions, he learned that she had ordered a fish egg tofu and steamed crab pot. He then ordered a stir-fried shrimp and kelp soup before asking the waiter to leave. Seeing that he was seriously ordering and did not plan to continue being perfunctory, Shi Nianj's originally good mood brightened again. "I've never been to this restaurant before, but I saw that the recommended dishes on the menu are all fish or seafood. Are you used to it?" Qin Sighting asked. "I'm used to it. Before my family moved to High City to do business, although we were always in an inland city, I liked to eat seafood and fish since I was very young. Now that I live in High City, it's more convenient to eat it." As Shi Nianj spoke, she supported her chin with one hand and looked at him. "You like seafood too?" Qin Sighting's tone was indifferent. "I'm not picky. I casually ordered 2 more. "Oh." After she said this, the topic seemed to have stopped. She once again fell into a silent atmosphere with no topic to talk about. Qin Sighting did not look at her. As though there was no one opposite him, he drank water from time to time and waited quietly for the dishes to be served. He was quiet but happy. When the dishes were served one after another, Qin Sighting asked the waiter to bring her a bowl of white rice. Shi Nianj originally thought that there were a lot of dishes, but when she saw this bowl of rice, she instantly felt full. She raised her eyes to look at him and picked up her chopsticks to eat. She usually did not have a big appetite. Since she was young, she could not be said to have lived a pampered life, but she would not eat too much. Basically, she was 70 to 80% full. Now that there was such a full bowl of rice, without thinking, she knew that she would definitely eat too much. In the end, she was really full. Qin Sighting, on the other hand, was not in a hurry to eat. He glanced at her again and saw that she was clearly full, but she was still resisting the urge to continue stuffing rice into her mouth. The man's handsome lips curled into an imperceptible smile. In a flash, he looked at her and asked, "Can you still eat?" "And I can eat." After saying this, Shi Nianj almost burped. She forced herself to hold back, picked up the cup, drank some water, and swallowed hard. Of course she could eat. Almighty Qin was treating. Even if he really wanted her to eat 10 bowls, she had to work hard. Qin Sighting looked at her for a while, and then ignored her. He picked up his chopsticks and continued eating. Chapter 1454. It was a quiet mealtime. As expected, Qin Sighting prepared to leave after eating. He did not have the courtesy of sending a female classmate home after eating. He was simply perfunctory, and was about to part ways. Don't think that she couldn't tell that he had suddenly turned to pull her away. He must have used her as a female classmate to avoid the people he didn't want to see in the car. Now that he had used her and treated her to a meal, he was about to leave without explaining. However, Nianj was quite happy to be used. She was also full. The two of them walked out of the restaurant, and the clean youth walked by her side. If they were not going to separate and return to their own homes, but to Lishui Villa together, they could stroll on the path home for 10 to 20 minutes. How good would that be? Just thinking about it would be beautiful. She turned around and saw that he was holding a shoulder bag. His clean and slender fingers were also very beautiful. She suddenly smiled. Just as Qin Sighting was about to walk in the opposite direction, she suddenly leaned over. Almighty Qin, good deskmate. Can you give me your contact number? Qin Sighting paused in his steps and lowered his head to look at her. She smiled at him and reached out her hand to him. We've been deskmates for so long, and we've eaten together. It's just a phone number. There's no need to not give it, right? Qin Sighting looked at Nianj and said indifferently, You're thinking too much. I'm not thinking much. I just know someone. It's not too much to ask for his phone number. Nianj did not care how cold his attitude was. Nianj didn't care how cold his attitude was. She was already used to it. She leaned close to him and maintained a close distance from him. She looked up at him and tugged on the zipper of his backpack. Anyway, I'll be able to ask you sooner or later. Instead of being pestered by me in the future, why don't you give it to me now? I promise I won't call you for no reason, nor will I send random messages. I'll quietly let your number lie in my phone's contact list. I definitely won't harass you. Qin Sighting looked at her and ignored her. He walked away. On the crowded street, many students in school uniforms were walking around. The clean and tall young man was wearing a white t-shirt and a blue and white school uniform. His black backpack made his back look even colder. He didn't even look back as he walked away. Nianj, on the other hand, stood there alone and laughed foolishly. I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Forget it. Anyway, she had just eaten with Qin Sighting. Just this alone was enough for her to be happy for the entire semester. Hee. On Saturday afternoon, Nianj had just finished writing the papers for her homework at home. She was still checking the difficult questions when her phone rang. She glanced at the number and got up to answer the call. She walked out to pour herself a glass of water and walked to the spacious balcony of the bedroom opposite the study. Nian, do you miss Mom and Dad? When we go back at the end of this month, do you have any gifts that you want? Shall I buy it for you? Her mother, Ms. Yang Jinjin, sounded very cheerful on the other end of the phone. She didn't need to guess to know that Shida Group's new cooperation in America was going smoothly, and it should be a very big deal. In recent years, Shida Group had been rising rapidly in High City. It was doing very well in all aspects, and was already highly regarded by the industry. It had already begun to look like a large enterprise. Her parents were getting busier and busier. When she was young, they rarely had time to accompany her. Now they only saw each other a few times a year. She leaned against the balcony to drink water and listened to Mrs. Yang Jinjin's smiling voice. She curved her lips. There's no need. I don't lack anything. When you fly back, choose a good weather so that you won't get airsick when the plane is bumpy. Just be careful. Little girl, you've been like a little adult since you were young. I'm airsick because of the after-effects of being pregnant with you. I've never been airsick in the past. As Mrs. Yang Jinjin spoke, she suddenly said, Coincidentally, Mom has nothing to do today. Come, report to your mother about the recent situation in school. Are you used to everything after skipping grades to year 3? Is there a lot of pressure in your studies? Year 3, you can imagine. Nianj smiled. If I say there's no pressure, you'll definitely be able to tell that I'm lying to you. Is it very difficult? If it really doesn't work, ask your grandfather to talk to the school. There's no need. I'm fine. You don't have to interfere. She had just had a meal with her male god. To her, it could be said that their relationship had taken a sharp turn. It was very likely that she would receive his phone number tomorrow. The day after tomorrow, they would become boyfriend and girlfriend, and the day after that, they would kiss. How could she go back to year 2 to be a junior? All right, let's talk about it after your dad and I go back. Right now, the family's company is indeed getting busier and busier. Mom and Dad might really neglect you in too many ways. Nian Nian, you've been so sensible since you were young. Mom really feels sorry. She looked at the villa that seemed to have never been lived in before. She looked at the bare villa yard and said to the phone, "When I was 7 years old, when you said these words, I might have hugged your and my dad's legs and cried for a while. Now I don't feel it anymore. Besides, at my age, freedom is a different kind of happiness. You don't have to owe me anything." Madame Yang Jinjin sighed, and finally decided to return to the topic at hand. "Nian Nian, Mom wants to discuss something with you." Hearing the tone of the other party, Shi Nianj roughly guessed something. "Is it about my plan to apply for the medical university again?" "Yes, although you're still young, you should be very clear about Shida Group's current situation. Your father and I only have one daughter. In the future, we'll have to leave all kinds of heavy responsibilities to our own children. We hope that you can give up your dream of studying medicine. It's enough to have a medical expert like your grandfather at home. You should go abroad to learn business management and business finance. If you agree, your father and I will arrange for you to stay in America when you're about to graduate." Shi Nianj was not in a hurry to refuse. After a moment of silence, she gently placed the cup of water on the balcony. "Mom, I didn't grow up in your office, but in my grandfather's laboratory. Nian Nian, I know what you want to say, but your father and I really hope that. You know what you owe me. I've never complained. I've been used to making my own decisions since I was young, so I still plan to follow my own path in the future. Grandfather is also a guest professor at the medical university. Studying medicine is the path I've thought about a long time ago. I won't change it. Nian Nian, when you come back, ask Uncle Qin to pick me up. Recently, I'll be living near the school. I won't be returning to the Shi family." With that, Shi Nianj hung up the phone, picked up the cup, and turned to return to the study. Chapter 1455. On Monday, when they went to school, the teacher checked the papers they had done at home over the weekend, and was furious. This was because the correct answers for the exam this time were at least 2 levels higher than before. As a result, many people were on the verge of passing. More than half of the students failed, and there was not even a single full score. The reason he did not get full marks was that Qin Sighting had handed in a blank paper. Of course, the teacher did not dare to ask why Crown Prince Qin, who was usually outstanding and always scored full marks, handed in a blank paper this week. She only asked around during class, and learned from a teacher, who went on a business trip over the weekend, that he saw Qin Sighting at the airport early Saturday morning. He was probably not in High City for the weekend, and did not take the time to write the papers. Qin Sighting did not explain at all. He did not even find a reason to hand in a blank paper. This really made the teacher love and hate him. As a result, the entire morning class was spent in a gloomy mood. Even the physical education class was occupied by the form teacher. He asked the entire class to sit together and analyze the questions. It wasn't easy for her to endure until noon. Shi Nianj's mind was already in a mess. She turned to look at Qin Sighting, and saw that he was actually writing the weekend's papers. The teacher had clearly explained the entire paper in the morning class, and planned to leave another paper with the same model, but different questions tonight. He just needed everyone to remember these ideas. However, what she saw was that Qin Sighting had written 2 ways to solve the question. The final answer was the same, but both methods were correct. She asked in surprise, "Male God, are you planning to study science all the way to the end? Are you going to MIT after graduation?" By the time she realized that she had accidentally blurted out the word male God, Qin Sighting had already stopped writing and turned to look at her. Shi Nian's expression did not change much, nor did she deliberately hide the embarrassment of accidentally calling him a male god. She only naturally blinked at him and smiled even wider at him. "It doesn't matter what I learn. After all, I'm not on the same path as you. Qin Sighting retracted his gaze and continued to disintegrate. The black pen moved slightly in his hand, leaving behind rows of clear, beautiful and smooth words. At the same time, he seemed to have thought of something and said coldly without raising his eyelids, I only need to tolerate you sitting by my side for another year. Nianj rolled her eyes at the pen in his hand. Of course not. After all, I'm going to study medicine. Save the dying and help the injured, understand? The brush in Qin Sighting's hand stopped, and he turned to look at her. Nianj was unconvinced by his words earlier. Before he could speak, she said, You'll just be entangled with these scientific things like physics, chemistry, and advanced mathematics every day. I'll wait for you to run to the hospital to queue up and beg me to treat you. After speaking, Nianj stood up and left. This was the first time she had been angry since she sat next to Qin Sighting for nearly a month. He actually said that he would tolerate her sitting by his side for another year, and even said that they would not be on the same path in the future. Was she that annoying? Nianj had never doubted her character, appearance, or any other aspects. She had never considered what she was inferior to, or what others were inferior to. However, today, she had really suffered a blow, causing her to be listless when she ate in the school cafeteria. Why are you a little listless today? Zhao Xiaoqing tapped her plate with her chopsticks. What's wrong? Nianj supported her chin with one hand as she sat by the dining table. As she pulled at the rice on her plate, she said, If I change seats with Hao Xiuxia and be your deskmate, will you be happy? Zhao Xiaoqing widened her eyes. Of course I'll be happy. How long has it been since you skipped a grade to our class? Everyone likes you now. We're good friends. If you can sit with me, I'll definitely be happy. Nianj nodded and did not ask any more. She lowered her head and continued eating. She had already made up her mind. It wasn't that there was a problem with her. It was Qin Sighting who was blind. Before class in the morning, there was half an hour to rest on the table. Nianj leaned on the table and closed her eyes, wanting to sleep for a while. But she could not fall asleep, especially when she could hear the sound of the person beside her writing. Although it was very quiet, her deskmate was very close. In the quiet classroom, and with her ears that she did not want to perk up, she could hear it especially clearly. Couldn't he tell that she was angry? He really didn't have any love for his deskmate. He couldn't even say a nice word. Nianj really couldn't sleep. After a while, she realized that the person beside her was no longer writing. It was very quiet. It was so quiet that she didn't know if he was resting on the table or doing something. However, she didn't seem to hear him get up. He should still be sitting, right? After a few minutes, she closed her eyes and turned her head. She carefully opened her eyes and met Qin Sighting's eyes without any precaution. Nianj was shocked. Qin Sighting did not avoid her gaze. He only looked at her before slowly shifting his gaze away and continuing to write the papers on his table. It was as though nothing had happened, but Nianj's heart was thumping wildly. Was he looking at her? Was he watching her sleep? Just now, she was still a little angry in her heart, but at this moment, that bit of anger seemed to have been instantly forgotten. All that was left was the appearance of the clean and handsome young man, sitting there quietly looking at her. That kind of calm but not distant and indifferent gaze. Her heart was no longer angry, but her face began to heat up. In the afternoon experiment class, Zhao Xiaoqing waved her hand in front of Nianj's eyes. When she saw her raise her head, she said, You're not normal this afternoon. At noon, you seem to have been abandoned. Then, you were happy the entire afternoon. What's wrong? Really? Nianj lowered her head to do the experiment. Aren't I very happy every day? Being lively and happy is different from being happy like a kitten that has stolen a fish. Zhao Xiaoqing leaned over and asked, Did Almighty Qin give you his phone number? No. Then why are you smiling foolishly? Nianj looked at the other students around her and carefully whispered into Zhao Xiaoqing's ear. When I was sleeping at noon, Qin Sighting looked at me. Ah, why did Almighty Qin look at you? That's right. Why did he look at me? Nianj's smile widened. How long did he look at you? Just a few seconds, right? You're so happy in a few seconds? Maybe he's looking at you because your arm was on top of his paper when you were sleeping? I don't care. Anyway, he looked at me. Nianj was still very happy. Her eyes were curved, and there seemed to be stars in her eyes. She turned back to look behind her, and saw that Qin Sighting was assisting the teacher with the experiment. The white lab coat on him was especially eye-catching. It was really good-looking. She wondered if she would have the chance to see him wear a doctor's white coat in the future. That would be a dream come true. Chapter 1456. Nianj, what are you looking at? The teacher suddenly glared at her warningly. Pay attention to the experimental tools in your hands. Don't hurt your hands. Nianj, who was suddenly caught by the teacher, quickly turned her head. Zhao Xiaoqing chuckled and looked at her. Nianj also lowered her head and snickered. When the teacher wasn't paying attention, she turned back and saw that Qin Sighting was still standing there motionlessly doing experiments with the teacher. In comparison, Qin Sighting was much taller than the teacher. Standing there, he was really eye-catching. Don't be infatuated. Hurry up. If you haven't finished the experiment by the end of class, your almighty Qin will laugh at you. Zhao Xiaoqing patted her. The words your almighty Qin made Nianj feel as though she was about to float. After coming out of the laboratory, Zhao Xiaoqing was still laughing at her. Just as she was about to walk back to the floor where the class was, she suddenly saw Tang Xiao standing there with an unlit cigarette in his hand. He turned to see Nianj, and his gaze was fixed on her. Smoking was definitely not allowed in the school, but usually, these boys would secretly take cigarettes to the toilet or to the back of the school to smoke. Only these young masters from especially well-off families dared to openly walk in the school building with cigarettes. Although he did not smoke the cigarette, he did not hide it. He held it between his fingers and stood there, staring in Nianj's direction. He seemed to want to say something, but when he saw that there was another female classmate beside her, he hesitated for a second. In this second, Nianj grabbed Zhao Xiaoqing's arm and turned to enter the class. Tang Xiao stood where he was and frowned in annoyance. He turned around and was about to leave when he suddenly saw Qin Sighting walking up the stairs on this side. The moment Tang Xiao saw Qin Sighting, his expression immediately turned cold. He didn't know what was wrong. They were both in their third year of high school, and it wasn't like they had never met Qin Sighting before. There had never been any disputes or conflicts between them. The two of them only existed in the discussions between the students in the school, and had never interacted much. However, although Tang Xiao had a shadow in his heart over the deduction of points, it wasn't that serious. Why did he feel that something was wrong when he met Qin Sighting these 2 times? He felt that the pressure was stronger than before. Almighty Qin. Tang Xiao knew how everyone usually called him, so he spoke politely. Qin Sighting only glanced at him indifferently. He did not stop and directly walked past him. I heard that my girlfriend is your deskmate now. Tang Xiao looked at him and didn't beat around the bush at all. I say, Almighty Qin, we're not strangers anymore. Last time, you were the one who deducted my points. Look, I didn't even let out a fart. Now that my girlfriend has skipped a grade to your class, I'm just telling you. Since we're in High City First High School, give me some face and treat her more. Nian Nian's personality is very straightforward. If she's offended you in any way, tell me. Don't be like her. Qin Sighting continued to walk forward without looking back. Tang Xiao was very unhappy and walked over. I say, Almighty Qin, we're not strangers anymore. Last time, you were the one who deducted those points. Qin Sighting suddenly stopped in his tracks. Tang Xiao didn't expect him to stop and raised his brows. Girlfriend? Qin Sighting looked at him indifferently. Or ex-girlfriend? Tang Xiao. A mouthful of turbid air suddenly surged in his chest. Didn't Qin Sighting usually ignore everything outside the window? How did he know so much about Nianj? In this month, other than being deskmates, could it be that they had any interaction? Tang Xiao pinched the cigarette in his hand. Just as he was about to speak, Qin Sighting expressionlessly turned and entered grade 3 class 6. He did not even look at him. Seeing that Qin Sighting's back view was exactly the same as Nianj's, Tang Xiao felt the turbid air in his chest become even fiercer. Damn it! Why would Nian Nian sit with such a cold-blooded animal? Letting her sit by Qin Sighting's side. Was he sure it wasn't psychological abuse to Shirnianj? What was the teacher of class 6 thinking? After Shirnianj entered the class, she sat at the back and chatted with Zhao Xiaoqing. There were still photos of the experiment results on her phone. The two girls were satisfied with the results of their experiment, and their faces were filled with happiness. Seeing that Qin Sighting had returned, Shirnianj quickly turned around and put down her phone. She turned to look at him, and saw that his eyes were clear and expressionless. It was clear that he did not intend to comment on her results in the laboratory. That's right. He was the only student who was qualified to do experiments with the teacher. Her and Zhao Xiaoqing's small results were nothing in his eyes. What could he say? But she still wanted to hear his praise. At this moment, the class monitor walked in from outside. As he walked, he turned back to look out. He happened to be coming to the back to collect everyone's exercise books. When he passed by Shirnianj, he asked, "Tang Xiao from class 2 is looking for you, right?" He still hadn't left. Shirnianj turned to glance at the class monitor. The class monitor had only casually asked and left. However, Shirnianj glanced sideways at the door of the class. If Tang Xiao hadn't left before the next class started, and the teacher saw him, she didn't know what he would think. She was about to get up, but she didn't notice that her phone had been placed by the table. Because she got up, her phone fell. She subconsciously rushed to catch it, but an arm by her side caught the phone at a faster speed. She bent down too quickly, and her chin hit his shoulder. Shirnianj raised her eyes and met Qin Sighting's gaze. Most importantly, this posture was very, very close. It was as though they could feel each other's breathing in an instant. Zhao Xiaoqing almost screamed when she saw this from behind. Qin Sighting turned his eyes away and placed his phone back on her table, not minding it at all. However, Shirnianj felt that her chin, face, and ears were rapidly heating up. She quickly picked up her phone and felt that it was a little hot. She turned back to see that Zhao Xiaoqing was covering her mouth and laughing, as though she had seen something ambiguous. Just now, she really felt Qin Sighting's breathing. So close. Shirnianj took a deep breath and decided not to go out. The central air conditioner outside was probably because of her father. He didn't want their relationship to be too stiff. This kind of relationship between families shouldn't be handled by students like them. She couldn't be bothered to care. Right now, she only knew that her heart was about to jump out. Her nose seemed to be stained with Qin Sighting's breath. Shirnianj raised her hand to touch her face. It was so hot. Chapter 1457. At night, a few distant relatives came to Zhao Xiaoqing's house today. They chatted with her parents. Originally, a house of more than 100 square meters was enough for a family of 3 to live in. But because there were more people, it could not fit. Zhao Xiaoqing was preparing to go to her aunt's house next door to stay. She even said that the papers would probably be torn up by her aunt's 2-year-old baby when she was halfway through. After all, her aunt had to take care of the child. She didn't know if she could sleep soundly there. Shirnianj simply brought Zhao Xiaoqing to her place. In any case, she was the only one living in the house in Lishui Villa. There were 2 floors up and down, and she was alone every day. With Zhao Xiaoqing living there, it would be more lively. After the 2 of them reached home, they finished the 2 papers and tested each other's English listening skills. By the time they finished the homework and revision tasks given by the teacher, it was already past 8 in the evening. I heard from the teacher that from next month onwards, we won't be able to leave school before 6 o'clock. Until the college entrance examination, we might have to study in school until 9 o'clock at night. Zhao Xiaoqing lay on the balcony, holding the milk tea Shirnianj had just made for her. As she drank it, she said somewhat melancholy, "In addition to the homework every day, I feel that it'll be very difficult to sleep before 12. Shirnianj smiled and took out another cup of milk tea. The milk tea at home was also made by Auntie Xiang. It was much better than the milk tea outside. It was also healthy and clean. Earlier, Zhao Xiaoqing had only taken a sip when she stood on the balcony with a look of pleasant surprise and almost cried out, exclaiming that it was delicious. "Nian Nian, what time do you usually sleep?" Zhao Xiaoqing asked. "Me around 11 o'clock. That won't do. We're spending more and more time in school, And we have more and more homework when we get home. We can't finish it before 11 o'clock. Zhao Xiaoqing looked dejected. There are still so many months before next year's college entrance examination. I really feel like I've fallen into the darkness. I don't know when I'll see the light. The college entrance examination is really too scary. I'll write some during self-study at night. I'll write some more when I come back at night. It shouldn't be a problem. Nianj sat by her side. The two girls sat on the balcony, drinking milk tea and chatting. The sky had already turned dark. Zhao Xiaoqing looked at the large, but seemingly uninhabited villa opposite her. Is there no one living opposite you? Or is the owner of the house not back yet? It's already so late, why aren't the lights on? I don't think there's anyone here. I've been living here for quite some time now, and I've never seen the lights on across the street. Nianj saw that the milk tea in Zhao Xiaoqing's cup was almost finished, and reached out to take it. Do you still want to drink? Zhao Xiaoqing looked conflicted. I still want to drink, but it's too late. If I drink too much, I probably won't be able to sleep. I think so too. Then I'll give you more milk. Great Nian Nian, I really didn't expect that. Your Shi family is also very famous in High City, but you actually have such a good personality, and are so clever with your hands. Your house is also clean, and you don't have the temper of a rich young lady at all. When you grow up, if any man can marry you, it will definitely be a blessing that he has cultivated for several lifetimes. As Zhao Xiaoqing spoke, she followed her in. She stuck her head out, and looked at the milk tea powder in Nianj's hand. She pointed and said, I am more. Don't really put fresh milk in it. This milk tea powder tastes really good. If it really doesn't work, I'll drink another cup. At most, we'll lose sleep together tonight. The two of them played at home for a long time until they finished showering in the master bedroom and guest bedroom. Nianj was about to go to the guest bedroom to see if she needed anything when Zhao Xiaoqing's scream suddenly came from the study next door. Ah! When Nianj heard the heart-wrenching scream, she rushed to the study in fright. When she pushed open the door, she saw Zhao Xiaoqing sitting on the ground with a pale face. She stared at the complete human skeleton in her study in fear. Nianj. Nian Nian, what is this? Why does your house have this? Zhao Xiaoqing was so frightened that she could not speak clearly. Her eyes were red. She stood up from the ground, and quickly moved behind her to hide. Nianj could clearly feel that her hands were cold from fright. Cough, I forgot that the guest bedroom is too close to my study. I should have closed the study door earlier. Nianj looked at the human skeleton inside. Don't be afraid. It's just a skeleton. It's a real skeleton? That's right. A human skeleton? That's right. Zhao Xiaoqing's face turned green, and she took several steps back. No, it's not a real human skeleton. It's just made according to the ratio of a normal human skeleton. Nianj quickly said, Isn't my grandfather a medical scientist? I've been influenced by him since I was young. I've always liked medical things. This skeleton was a birthday gift from my grandfather when I was 15. It's rare to see a skeleton made of this material on the market. Many doctors have this kind of thing in their homes or offices. Don't be afraid. Even if it was fake, it was too realistic. Zhao Xiaoqing turned to walk out with a pale face. Nianj quickly closed the door. Why don't you sleep in my bedroom? I'll sleep in the guest bedroom. If you're too close to the study, you'll be afraid when you sleep. It's fine. I'll be fine after a while. I was really shocked just now. Zhao Xiaoqing sat down on the sofa and patted her chest. She then looked at her in disbelief. Do you really plan to study medicine in the future? What's wrong with that? It's so tiring to study medicine. I heard that you can't graduate in 4 years. Even if you go abroad to study, it'll be very hard. Your family is in business. Don't you plan to study finance? I've been with my grandfather for too long. Many things are deeply rooted in me, and even affect the direction of my life. I can't change them even if I want to. Zhao Xiaoqing found it hard to imagine what kind of mentality Nianj, a girl who looked cheerful and sweet, had to calmly face such a terrifying skeleton in the study. Even if it was fake and not real bones. A very young girl lived here alone every day, and did not change her expression when facing a human skeleton. It was hard to imagine how strong her heart was. At night, Zhao Xiaoqing still could not control the fear in her heart. After lying down for half an hour, she could not take it anymore, and ran to Shinian's bedroom to sleep. She did not plan on letting Shinian sleep in the guest bedroom. After all, she was very afraid to sleep alone here. In the end, the two girls lay on the bed in the master bedroom. Each of them hugged a blanket and chatted until midnight. The next day, when they went to school, each of them had a pair of dark circles under their eyes. Chapter 1458. Zhao Xiaoqing stayed at Lishui Villa for 2 nights. After her relatives left, she immediately said that she wanted to scram back home to sleep. If there was nothing serious, she definitely wouldn't dare to sleep with her family's skeleton again. 2 days later, early in the morning, Shinian went to school by herself. When she arrived at the school gate, she received a call from Uncle Qin, informing her that her parents would be returning home in a while. He also told her when he would come to pick her up. Shinian was chatting on the phone when she suddenly saw Qin Sighting walking over from the shady road opposite her. She immediately walked toward him uncontrollably. After all, this was the first time she saw him before entering class in the morning. She could actually see the direction he had come from. Previously, she had only seen the black commercial car driven by his mother and the Qin family's driver. But she didn't know if Qin Sighting lived in the Qin family or lived outside, or if he lived with a good brother in school. She didn't know if he drove to school or had a car. Today, she finally saw him and realized that he actually walked to school. He was already 18 years old, right? He should be able to get a driver's license and drive legally, right? The clean youth had the temperament of a man and a man. He was handsome and quiet, and when he walked, his long legs seemed to carry an immortal aura. No matter what in her eyes, Qin Sighting carried an immortal aura. She quickly hung up the phone and leaned over to greet him. She sped up and ran over. She was naturally very happy to see him 10 minutes earlier than usual. Qin, When Shinian ran over, she happened to be behind him. She reached out to pat his back, wanting to give him a surprise and greet him at the same time. However, before her hand could touch his shoulder, Qin Sighting turned around and suddenly held her wrist. A sharp pain instantly came from her wrist, as though he could break it in an instant. Seeing that it was her, Qin Sighting let go of her hand, but Shinian covered her wrist in pain. She felt that if he had exerted a little more force, her wrist would have cracked. The pain caused a thin layer of sweat to appear on the tip of her nose. She held her wrist with one hand and looked up at Qin Sighting. With a bitter expression she said, "I'm sorry. I should have told you in advance before touching you." Qin Sighting frowned slightly. At the same time, he saw that her wrist was already red. The expression on his face was clearly not happy. He did not know if it was because he was overly guarded, causing her wrist to turn red, or because of something else. "You go first. I won't touch you again. I'll leave later." She knew that Qin Sighting's strength was not small. Although he was fair and clean, such a tall boy must be very strong. Last time in the library, she had only thrown him there in a moment of desperation. In fact, it was very easy for him to dodge. She had thought about it later. Today, she had finally confirmed that Qin Sighting looked gentle, but he was actually a boy full of strength. It was just that the price to pay for this verification was a little high. In the future, Qin Sighting's voice sounded a little hoarse. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but she felt that he didn't sleep last night. Not only did his voice sound hoarse, but his eyes were also cold and tired. However, seeing her aggrieved and unable to blame him, his handsome brows furrowed slightly. He glanced at her wrist again. "Call me before you suddenly approach." As he spoke, he suddenly reached out and tugged her wrist over. He turned it back and forth to look at it. After confirming that it was only red, and that it was probably just a physical pain, he let go. Shinian, on the other hand, recovered from the pain in her wrist, and was then stunned by the remaining temperature on her wrist. She blinked. Before she could recover, she heard him ask, "Does it hurt?" She saw that Qin Sighting seemed to be frowning because of his defensive actions. At this moment, Shinian felt that even if her wrist was broken, it would be worth it. It's fine. It just hurt for a while. It's fine now. Shi Nianj quickly placed her still red wrist behind her back. Qin Sighting was still looking at her with a serious expression. Shi Nianj smiled at him dryly, and took the opportunity to take a closer look at his expression and gaze. Didn't you rest well last night? You don't seem to be in a good mood. Qin Sighting no longer looked at her. He turned to walk toward the school gate. Hearing that she was following him, he answered in a low voice. N. Shi Nianj no longer felt the pain in her wrist. She even felt that the pain was too wonderful. Qin Sighting actually did not ignore her words. Even if it was just a nun, it could at least be considered a positive response to her idle chatter. When the two of them walked into the main entrance of the school, the nearby students turned their gazes over. Shi Nianj felt that she was open and aboveboard, and there was nothing to avoid. Her gaze was calm, and her steps were also calm. Qin Sighting completely ignored those gazes. It could be said that he had never looked at anyone passing by and walked straight in. After entering the class, Qin Sighting went to the podium to put down the papers. Shi Nianj went to her seat alone. When she lowered her head to put down her bag, she saw that her wrist was still red. It could be seen how powerful his grip was. Logically speaking, no matter how strong Qin Sighting was, he would not suddenly use so much strength, just because someone suddenly slapped him early in the morning. His defensive state earlier, coupled with the fact that he did not seem to have slept much last night, she could not help but suspect that the Qin family, one of the so-called four big families in High City, was really like what others said. There were too many secrets in a wealthy family, and everyone was not as relaxed as they seemed. At the very least, Qin Sighting seemed to have many things that she could not guess, but he clearly seemed to be in the sunlight, which made her even more confused. Qin Sighting walked over. Shi Nianj quickly straightened his table and chair, so that he could sit down more comfortably. She then remembered that it was still very early, and that the teacher would probably arrive in half an hour. She reached out and pulled the curtains slightly, just enough to block the sunlight from Qin Sighting's table. She thought that he might be able to rest on the table for a while. When Qin Sighting walked over, he saw her actions. He then caught a glimpse of her other careful actions. At the same time, he saw the mark on her wrist that had yet to fade when she went to pull the curtains. He did not say anything, and only turned back to instruct the Lifestyle Committee member. The Lifestyle Committee member nodded in surprise, and stood up to leave. Qin Sighting walked back to the table and sat down. In less than 10 minutes, the Lifestyle Committee member brought back an ice bag from the infirmary, and gave it to Shi Nianj, asking her to put it on her wrist. Shi Nianj looked at the ice bag that suddenly appeared in front of her, and turned to look at Qin Sighting in surprise. Seeing that he was flipping through his notes and not looking at her, her heart instantly swelled. Chapter 1459. How Xiuxia was a few minutes late today. After entering the class and sitting down, he saw that the teacher had yet to arrive. He quickly called out to Shi Nianj from behind. Nian Nian, quick, lend me the papers from last night to copy. My parents quarreled at home last night, causing me to go downstairs and wander around for half the night without doing my homework. Later, I was too sleepy and didn't write. Teacher Zhao will be here soon. Quickly lend it to me to copy. I promise I'll finish in 5 minutes. All right, I'll look for it. Shi Nianj turned back and saw how Xiuxia's anxious expression. She lowered her head and rummaged through her bag, but after searching for a long time, she couldn't find it. Wait a minute. Let me think where I put it. It seems to be in a book. I brought a lot of books today. Hurry up, old Zhao is coming. Every time Zhao Xiaoqing entered the class, she would hand in her papers immediately. How Xiuxia knew her habit. He knew that she didn't have any papers in her hands, so he could only look for Shi Nianj in front of her to save her. However, Shi Nianj did bring a lot of books today. She didn't know where she had placed them. Seeing how anxious the little fatty was, she said, "Why don't you copy Almighty Qin's papers first?" All right. That's even better. Almighty Qin's accuracy is 100%. I'll just copy 2/3 of it. I'll just write the rest randomly. Old Zhao definitely won't find out that I copied it. How Xiuxia nodded repeatedly. Shi Nianj saw that Qin Sighting, who was sitting by the side, heard her words but did not react. She picked up his bag and placed it on her lap. She opened it and searched. When the girl at the next table got up to pour water, she saw Shi Nian's actions and said in surprise, "Classmate Shi, your relationship with Almighty Qin is so good. You can even rummage through Almighty Qin's bag?" Shi Nian did not find Qin Sighting's papers, nor did she pay attention to the girl passing by. She turned to look at him. "Where's your paper?" Qin Sighting sat there without batting an eyelid. He raised his chin slightly towards the podium. Shi Nian's sluggish brain seemed to have finally recovered her memories. Yes, he seemed to have placed the test paper on the podium first. She was still holding his bag and placing it on her lap. Seeing that he could not borrow their papers, Hao Xiuxia hurriedly went to the side to borrow them from others. Zhao Xiaoqing sat in the back and looked at Shi Nian, then at Qin Sighting. She chuckled and lowered her head to send Shi Nian a message. "Almighty Qin actually let you search his bag. He's not angry. Nian Nian, how did you do it? Isn't that too awesome?" Shi Nian felt her phone vibrate in her pocket. She quickly placed her bag back on his side and took out her phone to take a look. Her heart skipped a beat. She was just used to sitting by Qin Sighting's side and being ignored by him. Usually, she adhered to the principle of doing everything herself. If she could not disturb him, she would not disturb him. For example, when she handed out the papers and took the books, she was used to reaching out to take them herself. In any case, he would not even reach out his hand. He probably wouldn't mind borrowing papers, so he didn't think too much about it just now. But now that he thought about it, it did seem a little too intimate. The key was that Qin Sighting remained calm and did not refuse. "I've been desk mates with Hao Xiuxia for almost 3 years, but he never let me casually flip through his bag." Zhao Xiaoqing sent her another message. Shi Nian didn't know how to reply. At this moment, Teacher Zhao came in. She quickly put her phone away, but for some reason, an unconcealable smile appeared on her lips. In the following days, Qin Sighting clearly repulsed her from the beginning to gradually get used to having such a person sitting by his side. Even though he still wouldn't take the initiative to say or do anything to her, and his attitude was still indifferent, at the very least, he would occasionally communicate normally. Sometimes, when Shi Nian asked him some questions, he would answer her with a few words. His answers would not be particularly few, and gradually he would answer more. Even if he said one more word than yesterday, Shi Nian would be happy for the entire day. She had never thought that her thoughts would be completely occupied by one person every day. At Shi Nian's age, she usually didn't have much to worry about. Other than her parents wanting her to study finance and medicine, there didn't seem to be anything that worried her too much in life. Using her parents was only a suggestion. They didn't force her to make a choice, so she didn't have anything to be unhappy about. Right now, her heart was filled with Qin Sighting every day. As long as he turned to look at her while she was speaking, she would be especially happy. It was almost the middle school entrance exam. Recently, the third-year students had entered the state of studying until 9:30 a.m. every day. Everyone's faces were much more haggard than 2 months ago, because they were too focused on the exam and revision. Recently, because her parents had returned to China, she had to be brought back to the Shi family by Uncle Qin every day. At night, she had to accompany her parents to chat and do her homework. She could only sleep after 11:30 a.m., but her sleep quality had always been good. When she woke up in the morning, she was in a good state. Furthermore, there was a top student sitting beside her. Right now, Qin Sighting would answer most of her questions about her studies. Her grades had improved by leaps and bounds. She couldn't be ranked at the top of the school year, but she definitely wouldn't be at the bottom. She placed the thermos cup she brought in the morning on Qin Sighting's table. "This is the fruit tea Auntie made. I left it in the fridge last night. It's cold and especially delicious. Try it." Qin Sighting glanced at her and looked away. He did not drink it. "It's not the very sweet kind. It's just a very pure fruit tea. Everyone has tasted the milk tea powder I brought to our class last month. You've tasted it too. You definitely know my auntie's skills." Shi Nian opened the lid and handed it to him. "Try it. It's cold and refreshing." Qin Sighting glanced at the lid in front of him and took a sip. Shi Nianj smiled and closed the lid. I thought you'd like it, so I specially brought it. I saw that you don't usually drink coffee or milk tea, nor do you eat meat. You're more accepting of fruits and vegetables, so you'll definitely like this fruit tea. After drinking, Qin Sighting made a light sound and did not say anything. Shi Nianj was used to it. After a while she said, It's going to be the midterm exam soon. I haven't finished my second-year courses. I still don't know half of the third-year courses. I might have more questions in the next few days. Do you think I'm too talkative? Qin Sighting did not reply. Although he had replied quite a few times now, he did not reply every time. Speaking of this, Shi Nianj was still quite depressed because she had yet to obtain Qin Sighting's phone number. That time when they ate on the street, it was only because of a coincidence that it became the only time. Later on, even if she wanted to meet him in the school cafeteria, she did not have the chance. Chapter 1460. Before the midterm exam, Shi Nianj had endured for many days like everyone else. When the results came out, it could be seen that she had worked very hard. Previously, when she was in the second year of high school, her grades were only above average. When she was in the third year of high school, she could understand a portion of the curriculum and work hard to revise. In the end, she could obtain more than 100 points in the midterm exams. The teacher was already very satisfied with her current results and encouraged her to continue working hard. She wanted to take advantage of the remaining time to continue to take more remedial lessons and complete all the courses in the second and third years. This way, if her ranking could continue to rise during the final exam, the teacher would definitely not let her grandfather down. Without a doubt, Qin Sighting's results were still first in the school year. It was said that he had been first in the school year for a long time. No one could shake this first place. According to Shi Nianj's observation of him, she found that although he would listen in class, he was not overly focused like other top students, nor was he the type of person who lowered his head to focus on learning. He seemed to be blessed by nature and had an absolute ability to absorb all kinds of knowledge. In addition, he was also very serious. Unlike other rich kids who dawdled around every day, his life was bright, clean, and had an accurate direction. Gradually, he seemed to have become her wind vane in school every day. Then look, the total score is 185 points lower than yours. Last month, when you lent me your notes to copy, I said that if I can reach the passing mark and exceed the estimated score by at least 50 points, you should give me your phone number. Look, I've exceeded quite a bit. You're right. Qin Sighting nodded. You're right. You're right. Qin Sighting did not answer. Although she was the one who suggested it, and he did not speak or agree, he did not reject it. Shi Nianj had no choice but to compromise. How about this? During the final exam, if my results are more than 30 points higher than now, you'll give me your phone number? Qin Sighting did not look at her, as though he did not hear her. Shi Nianj did not want to be discouraged, but she still felt a little hurt. He clearly did not reject her at that time. It was just a phone number. It wasn't like she would disturb him. After the exam, it happened to be a rare 2-day weekend. Recently, the school had been too tight. They could only rest for half a day on Sundays. It was rare for them to have 2 days of vacation. Zhao Xiaoqing asked Shi Nianj out to shop. She was wearing a beautiful floral dress and held her arm as they walked. Didn't you do well in the exam this time? The teacher already said that you, a student who skipped a grade, was ranked in the top 300 of the school year. You've left all the students at the bottom of our class behind. Why are you still so listless? Who provoked you? Shi Nianj forced a smile. No, it's probably because in my current situation, I can only shake off the last few with this bit of ability. However, the hundreds of people in front of me still need to continue looking up to me. It's really too difficult to catch up. Thinking about it, I feel that what adults usually complain about is very reasonable. What is it? Students are the most tiring. When you grow up, you'll only feel tired because of the endless responsibilities and the burden of life. But when you're a student, you'll feel tired because of the combination of mental and physical strength. You'll have endless homework, Endless revision and endless grades. Tisk, haven't you always been extroverted? Why are you suddenly depressed? Zhao Xiaoqing smiled. Did you break up again? The so-called breakup in Zhao Xiaoqing's mouth was already Shi Nian's normal state. For example, if Qin Sighting ignored her one day, or if she said something about being ignored by Qin Sighting, or if Qin Sighting went to the student cadre for a meeting and did not attend class, these could all be collectively referred to as Shi Nian's breakup stage. More or less. Shi Nian sighed. Zhao Xiaoqing could not help but laugh. I think you should change your target. Many boys in our class like you. Shi Nian did not say anything. She just lowered her head to look at her phone. The class monitor had just sent her a registration form to hand in on Monday. It was a temporary vacancy in the cram school. Coincidentally, she had filled it in. She picked up her phone and began to fill in the form. In fact, Shi Nian's views and methods on many things were frank and open. However, when it came to Qin Sighting's small and obscure love, she realized that she was actually quite cowardly. After filling in the form, the class monitor asked where she was. After filling in the form, the class monitor asked her where she was. She said that she was shopping with Zhao Xiaoqing outside. The class monitor asked if they needed a man to help them carry their bags. Shi Nian helplessly smiled and replied no. The class monitor was very regretful and wished her a good time shopping. Only then did the message chat end. After shopping for several hours, she did not buy anything. After all, she usually wore her school uniform for a longer time. She did not lack daily clothes, so there was really nothing to buy. Seeing that Shi Nian had been listless, Zhao Xiaoqing invited her to the dessert shop to eat a chocolate donut before the two of them went home. During the rare 2-day break after the midterm exam, Shi Nian's emotions could not come up. After shopping for a day, she returned home and stayed in seclusion. Occasionally, she would call her grandfather to report her academic results. Occasionally, she would look at some suitable learning materials that her grandfather had sent her. When she had nothing to do, she would look at the human skeleton in the study room and observe the position and composition of every bone. She did not feel sleepy even after counting them one by one. However, there seemed to be something pressing down on her heart. Her mind kept flashing with the image of Qin Sighting's indifferent expression after seeing her results. She could only blame herself for not working hard enough. She dared to show off in front of him with her mediocre grades. It was already good that she did not get mocked by him. What encouragement could she hope for? He did not owe her anything, and there was indeed no need for him to encourage her. On Sunday night, Shi Nian packed up her study materials and books. She had to return to school tomorrow. After showering, she lay on the bed and closed her eyes. Her mind was filled with Qin Sighting. She raised her hand and knocked her head. She should find time to help out in her grandfather's laboratory for a few more days to distract herself. She then recalled that she had yet to show her results to her parents. A while ago, after her parents returned to China, they returned to America after staying at home for half a month. Right now it was daytime in America. She got up and took a photo of the papers with her phone before sending it to her parents. A few minutes later, she went to warm a glass of milk for herself and was about to drink it when she heard a message from her phone on the bed in the bedroom. She thought that her parents had replied to her after seeing her results. She drank the milk carelessly. After a long while, she slowly returned to the bed. She lifted the blanket and prepared to lie down. She picked up her phone and casually swiped it open to take a look. In the next moment, Shi Nian's expression fell into an unprecedented emptiness and blankness. She even forgot to breathe. When she returned to her senses, she took a deep breath and stared at the unfamiliar number and text message on the screen. She saw that there were only 3 cold words on it: Qin Sighting. Chapter 1461. Shi Nian stared at the 2 words, wishing that she could stare a hole through the phone screen. Her number was written on his notes when she made the suggestion before the midterm exam. She had only casually written a string of numbers, but she had indeed written it in front of him. He knew it was her number. However, how could she dare to think that Qin Sighting would really save her phone number? He probably forgot about it after taking a glance at it. He didn't remember that she had written her number. Now it seemed that not only did he remember, but he might have also saved her number on his phone? Oh my God. She couldn't imagine. Who would be able to fall asleep? Shirniange held her phone and looked at it for a long time before noticing that this message was sent 15 minutes ago. 15 minutes before, it was already so late. After he sent her a message, she did not immediately reply. After so long, he should be asleep. After all, he still had class tomorrow, Monday. Furthermore, regardless of whether she replied or not, he probably wouldn't wait for her to reply. He only sent her a message to tell her his number. But what if he was waiting? After all, whether it was out of politeness or something else, she should reply. She hesitated for a long time and typed a long paragraph on her phone. But in the end, she deleted it. In the end, she only replied, "All right, I'll remember it. See you at school tomorrow." After sending the message, she hugged her phone and did not let go. She could not bear to put it down, nor could she bear to sleep. However, she was still sleepy. Furthermore, she knew that regardless of whether he was asleep or awake, he would definitely not reply to this message. After all, after so long, she understood his temper. It was already a miracle that he could send a message with his number. She had to be content. She closed her eyes and thought about it. In the end, she fell asleep in a daze. When she opened her eyes the next day, she thought that she had a dream. She quickly picked up her phone and flipped through the message records. When she saw the 3 words Chin citing from that number, her heart instantly relaxed. It was true. Last night, she was so excited that she forgot to save it. She quickly remembered the string of numbers and saved his name. Chin Sighting's name was saved into her address book. When she went to school, she saw that her male god, who had arrived early, was already sitting there. Shirniange walked over with a smile. After sitting by his side, she turned to look at him. The clean young man was only sitting there reading formulas during the morning self-study. He did not come to see her at all. It didn't matter if he didn't look at her. It didn't stop her from looking at him. She was now a little fangirl who had been treated to a meal by her idol and had his phone number. The midterm exams weren't as relaxing as she had imagined. Instead, the burden of studying became heavier. She was about to sprint for all kinds of mock exams, major and minor exams, and the final exam in 2 months. To put it simply, the 3rd year of high school wasn't suitable for dating at all. If you wanted to date, you didn't even have the time and energy to spare. At most, you could only hide your thoughts. Shirniange also calmed down a lot after obtaining Chin Sighting's number. She never called or sent him a message. She still maintained the state of sitting by his side in class every day. After a few exams, it was finally the end of the term. After the final exam results were released, Shirniange's score was 40 points higher than the midterm exam. Her ranking in the school year had also advanced by about 20 places. Although she was still ranked at the bottom, at least she had improved. She did not have the ability to be a top student. In addition, because she had skipped a grade, the teacher was still satisfied with her results. He even took some time out to ask her to go to the office and help her explain all the questions she had done wrong. This was to prevent her from encountering such a difficult problem in the next exam. Shirniange was also serious in her studies. Although she had been a little tired these few months, her ability to accept was considered strong. Even now, she did not feel any psychological pressure. It was almost winter break and the spring festival. The holidays for the 3rd year of high school wouldn't be too long. After the final exam, they still had to study in school for about a month. They would only be able to officially take a break when the new year was approaching, but the break was only about 20 days. It wasn't easy for her to finally be able to take a break. There were only 4 to 5 days left before the spring festival. Shirniange's birthday was in February of the Gregorian calendar, the first month of the lunar calendar. It happened to be her birthday during the holiday. The day before the holiday, Zhao Xiaoqing gave her a beautiful and exquisite crystal box, saying that it was a gift for her to come of age in advance. That's right. After this birthday, she would be 18 years old. Hao Xiuxia was a fat, straight man. He didn't know what to give her. After asking around, he heard that girls were all foodies, so he prepared a gift box for her. Shirniange held the box and looked at the pile of puffy food inside. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but she still accepted it. After school, she specially carried it home. As it was almost the spring festival, her parents were on leave. It was rare for them to fly back to spend the new year together. Shirniange placed the gift in Lishui Villa and followed Uncle Qin back to the Sher family. The Sher family had many relatives, but because her parents had moved out to live alone very early and rarely visited their relatives, there were only the three of them during the spring festival. Then, on the second day of the new year, they would go to her grandfather's place to accompany him. However, her grandfather was even busier than these young people. He only went for a day before he chased him back, saying that he found them noisy. Until Shirniange's birthday. After all, it was the day she came of age. Her parents had planned to hold a banquet for her and invite various partners in High City to hold a banquet for her coming-of-age ceremony. But she rejected them. Even though Shirniange had grown up in a good family, she did not like the deception in the upper class. What coming-of-age ceremony or banquet? It was just a place for these adults to talk. They could find any reason, but they could not let her be the reason. Then, her parents simply held a simple banquet for her at home. They bought cakes and gifts. Some of their friends who had a good relationship with the Sher family also came. Shirniange drank more or less. Although there were only a few glasses of red wine, she did not drink much in the past. Of course, her alcohol tolerance was very poor. After sending away the guests at night, her cheeks were flushed. Auntie Xiang saw that she was in the mood after drinking red wine, and quickly helped her back to the bedroom, asking her to lie down and sleep early. Shirniange tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. She had already been on holiday for so many days. She was not used to the sudden slowing down of her life. With the help of the alcohol in her body and a little impulse, she couldn't suppress the desire in her heart. She really wanted to see her idol say happy birthday on the day she became an adult. Even if it was just a few cold words, it would be good. She searched the bedside, picked up her phone, and found the number with Qin Sighting's name on it. Chapter 1462. She stared at the string of numbers and the three words. She bit her lip and slowly slid her fingers back and forth on her phone. After thinking about it for more than 10 minutes, her remaining rationality forced her to retract her fingers. However, when she placed her phone back under her pillow and closed her eyes, she saw the string of numbers on her phone. She felt that she should do something. But what should she do? Even if she really sent a text message, what should she send? After dawdling for a long time, Shirniange took out her phone again. She stared at the number on the screen and sent 3 words. Qin Sighting. After sending it, she raised her head to look at the time displayed on the screen. It was already 10:30 p.m. It was winter vacation now. Unlike usual, everyone slept very late. According to a normal and healthy schedule, he must have already fallen asleep. However, she had already sent it. Even if he wasn't asleep, he probably wouldn't reply to her. However, she felt very satisfied after sending it. She placed her phone back on the bedside table and took a deep breath. All right, let's sleep. However, before she could fall asleep, her phone vibrated on the bedside table. Shirniange opened her eyes in a daze and looked at the phone above. When she saw that the screen had also lit up, her heart skipped a beat. Could it be at this time? Would Qin Sighting reply to her? She abruptly sat up from the bed and quickly took her phone back. When she opened the screen, she felt as though her heart was about to jump out of her throat. She looked down and saw that it was really Qin Sighting. He really replied. Qin Sighting. Question mark. A question mark. Although there were very few words. And it could be said that there was not even a word, only a punctuation mark. It was enough to shock Shirniange. A question mark. A question mark sent by Qin Sighting. Such a concise question mark definitely proved that it was really him. But since it was a question mark, it meant that she could continue replying. I'm not sleeping anymore. Shirniange pressed her phone against her heart for a while before quickly sitting upright on the bed. She held her phone and seriously looked at the question mark on it. She then began to carefully consider how she should reply. Then she slowly poked the screen with her finger word by word. Did I disturb your rest? She then carefully clicked send. Her phone soon vibrated again. He actually replied very quickly. No, I didn't disturb him. Then he shouldn't be reading or busy right now. Perhaps he was lying on the bed like her, and hadn't fallen asleep yet. Rounding it up, it was equivalent to Almighty Qin lying down and chatting with her. She held her phone with one hand, and quickly covered herself with the blanket with the other. She held her phone and muttered softly, calm down, calm down. I have to be calm. If this continues, I won't be able to continue chatting. What should she say now? Holding her phone, her face was full of sweetness, but also a little distressed. Then, she bit her lip and replied, the weather in High City has been quite cold recently. Do you go out often during the holidays? Be careful of the cold. School will start in a week. Be careful not to catch a cold. She could not hesitate anymore. If she continued to dawdle like this, Qin Sighting might fall asleep. However, after sending it over, she looked at the content and regretted it. What did she post? What cold protection? What cold? She instantly covered her face and burrowed into the quilt, hugging her phone. She couldn't tell if she was upset or something, but there was a hint of sweetness in her heart. Her phone vibrated again. She lowered her head to take a look. It was another simple and cold word. N. She paused for a moment and glanced at the time. There was less than an hour and a half left until the end of the day. But in this hour and a half, he could fall asleep at any time. Looking at the words that he had restored, there were only 3 words and 3 punctuation marks in total. However, Shi Nianj felt that these words were extremely beautiful. Looking at Qin Sighting's words displayed on the screen, she felt that they were extremely warm and gentle. She was also afraid that if she continued speaking, Qin Sighting would find it annoying. She was afraid that if she chatted with him in the middle of the night, not only would she disturb his rest, but he would also feel that she was too long-winded. After all, in his eyes, they were only deskmates. He could only reply to her, because they were deskmates. It was still a holiday, and they couldn't see each other usually. It was really not good for her to send him a message in the middle of the night without a reason. But what else could she say? Just say goodnight and I'll sleep? Then her goal of sending him a message tonight would not be achieved. She just wanted to wish him a happy birthday. What should she send? Should she say, Almighty Qin, today is my birthday. Can you say happy birthday to me? She felt a little stupid. Or should she say, Dear deskmate, I'm 18 years old today. She felt even stupider. How could she let him know that it was her birthday today, and take the initiative to say happy birthday? She turned back to look at her room. There was still a cake that a relative had sent over in the morning that she had not eaten, and had forgotten to take down. She then looked at the crystal calendar by the side. Shi Nianj's eyes moved. She lifted the blanket and ran to the cake. She opened the cake box, and moved the calendar on the table close to the cake. After thinking for a moment, she found her student ID, and placed it by the side. Her date of birth was written on the student ID. After placing them together, she felt satisfied, and used her phone to take a photo and send it to him. After sending it, she quickly sent a cute smiley face to him. Silence was better than words. He would understand, right? After sending this photo and the smiling face, the message was like a stone sinking into the sea. She did not receive a reply for a long time. Was he asleep? It was almost 11 o'clock. She had just come over to prepare the cake, the calendar, and her student ID. She had also taken a few photos to find a good and clear angle. It had been so long. He should be asleep. The sweetness in Shi Nianj's heart that was about to float instantly fell. However, when she thought about it carefully, to be able to receive a message from Qin Sighting on her birthday, and there were 3 of them, this could be considered a birthday gift to her. With this thought, she felt happy again. She took the cake out and asked Auntie Xiang to put it in the refrigerator. She then closed the door and returned to bed. This time, she covered herself with the blanket, but she could not fall asleep. She had been wondering if he had seen her text message. Could it be that the photo had failed to be sent? He didn't see it. After thinking for a long time, she was afraid that he had really fallen asleep, and did not dare to disturb him. After a few minutes, the phone in her hand vibrated again. She immediately picked it up and quickly swiped the screen. Chapter 1463. Sheen sighting. I just went to take a shower. Then in less than 2 seconds another message came in. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Ah. Aha. Nianj hugged her phone and rolled on the bed several times, unable to calm the joy in her heart. She looked at the 2 messages on the screen and childishly checked the words on the message. 10 words. There were 10 words on these 2 messages. He even wished her a happy birthday. Her life seemed to be complete at this moment. She resisted the urge to send him a string of ha. She even added a hee before good night. It was mainly because she really could not express the joy in her heart. He should know that she was happy, right? This time, after sending it again, she thought that he would not reply, but he actually replied very quickly. Good night. This time she really couldn't sleep. Nianj placed her phone aside and remembered to charge it. She then lay back on the bed and opened her eyes to look at the ceiling and the beautiful chandelier above. Her mind kept thinking about how he would reply to her message. Was he going to take a shower? He replied to her before taking a shower, and then he replied to her after taking a shower. Was he wearing any clothes? Wait a minute. What was she thinking? Nianj raised her hand to hold her flushed face. She leaned against the pillow and took a long time to calm down. It was as though she was soaking in a honey pot. Although her phone was charging, Nianj still held it in her arms all night. In the middle of the night, she felt that her phone was a little warm from the charging. She put it back, turned over, and continued sleeping. She even had a dream. She dreamed that Sheen sighting came out of the bathroom with only a white towel wrapped around his lower body. He picked up his phone and saw her photo. Then his beautiful lips curled up slightly as he sent her 2 words, Happy birthday. How could it be such a beautiful dream? Even though she knew it was a dream, she didn't want to wake up. In the dream, she carefully observed the handsome boy and looked at his back. When he put down his phone and turned around, she was so scared that she quickly covered her eyes. However, at this moment, the dream mirror was shaken up by the noisy alarm. She suddenly opened her eyes, raised her hand, and pressed the alarm on her phone. She wanted to continue the dream, at least to finish the dream, but it was useless no matter how she closed her eyes. Nianj helplessly opened her eyes and picked up her phone to check the time. It was already past 6 in the morning. Every year, the day after her birthday, she would visit several relatives with her parents. Because it was still the first month of the spring festival, these days of visiting relatives would probably continue for another 2 or 3 days. 2 of his aunts lived far away in the neighboring province. Because it was a neighboring province, there was no need to fly there, so they had to get up early to drive there. She was about to put the phone back when she suddenly remembered what happened last night. She took it back and carefully opened the message page. She saw the messages from yesterday again. His words and hers were all inside, lined up as though they were chatting continuously. During the day, when she followed her parents to the neighboring province, Nianj would occasionally take out her phone to look at the chat records. She was even afraid that her hand would slip and accidentally delete the records. So after looking at them for a while, she carefully turned them off to prevent them from being deleted. For the next few days, any unhappy things seemed to have disappeared. As long as she took a look at the message records, she would immediately be happy. School would start in a few days. She really missed the days when she could sit by Sheen sighting's side every day. 2 days before school started, her parents had to return to the company to start their busy schedule. This time, they were not flying to America, but to the branch office in Singapore for 2 months. After that, they would continue to go to America. In short, she might not be able to find time to return before the college entrance examination. At night, as Nianj packed her school bag for school the day after tomorrow, she thought about how she was about to see Sheen sighting again. There was a smile on her lips, completely unaffected by her parents' departure from the country. Even though he knew that because they rarely accompanied her, she was already used to the situation that they weren't in the country, and her parents going abroad wouldn't touch her switch of joy, anger and sadness. He had never seen her so happy before school started. She had a smile on her face the whole night, even when she was eating. "What have you been smiling about all night?" Shi Nianz's adorable old mother, Madame Yang Jinjin, could not hold it in any longer. No matter how much she did not accompany her daughter, she still wanted to care about her current life and study before she left. Seeing her mother push open the door and enter her bedroom, the smile on Shi Nianz's lips did not fade. "It's nothing. It's just that school is about to start. I'm in a good mood when I think about meeting my good friends and classmates." However, Madame Yang Jinjin raised her brows and looked at her. She asked with a sensitive expression, "You've always had a good relationship with your former classmates. I've never seen you so happy when school started. Furthermore, this is the 3rd year of high school. Didn't you shout that you were pulled from heaven to hell overnight? Why are you so happy?" Shi Nianz thought for a moment. "Maybe it's because I've grown up. I feel that I can save a year of study time compared to others. It's like stealing a year. I'm a little happy. Enough of you." Madame Yang Jinjin sat by her bed and pressed her unpacked school bag down. She then glanced at the phone she had placed by the bed. "Recently, I've seen you hugging your phone and laughing foolishly every day. There are no calls or messages, and your phone is silent. You can stare at the screen and be happy for a long time. Tell me, are you in love? Your father and I have never objected to what you should do at a certain age. Previously, when Tang Xiao chased after you, didn't we not object? We just told you to protect yourself. You've already grown up. You can decide for yourself. What else do you have to hide? It's not love." Not. Shi Nianz realized that she could always be very calm about Tang Xiao's matter. Just as her parents had said, at which age would something happen? 18 years old was not considered puppy love. But after all, they were still students. So some feelings could only be buried under the surface. Many of her peers would not be too embarrassed to share them with others. However, in front of her parents, she never had to hide these things. But towards Qin sighting, she suddenly realized. She actually felt a sense of shyness. She didn't know how to describe it. She felt that even if she mentioned Qin sighting's name in front of her mother, her heart would beat faster. Chapter 1464. Seeing that her mother wanted to know so much, Shi Nianz said directly, "I like someone very, very much, but I don't think he has any intention of getting a girlfriend. Besides, his personality isn't that approachable. I just feel that sitting by his side in class is very motivating." Mrs. Yang Jinjin raised her brows. "Oh, a crush. You really have to experience all the things you should experience in your adolescence. You won't miss a single one." The corner of Shi Nianz's mouth twitched. "It can't be said to be a crush." Yang Jinjin took the opportunity to laugh at her. "All right, I'll still say the same thing. Whether it's feelings or interpersonal relationships, it's fine as long as you know your limits. Dad and Mom won't interfere with your freedom. Protect yourself. Don't cross the line that you shouldn't cross. We won't interfere with other matters." Shi Nianz picked up the new notebook and placed it in her bag. She then raised her eyelids to look at her. "Then don't interfere with whether I want to apply for the finance or medicine department, okay?" Her mother looked at her for a while and sighed. "Before we came back, your father and I had a deep discussion about this matter. You weren't by our side since you were young. We can give you too little. Our child has grown up healthy. We really shouldn't force you to do anything. You decide for yourself." Shi Nianz nodded. Hearing this, the only boulder in her heart was relieved. The following last day of vacation was really longer than the previous 20 days. She was so bored that she followed her parents to Shida Group's company for a walk. The top floor of Shida Group was basically not accessible, but she could enter. The top floor was an office area, but there were some leisure and entertainment places on the rooftop. There were bowling and swimming. She stayed inside for an entire day and looked at the time in boredom. She wished that time could jump to tomorrow morning. School would start tomorrow. Tomorrow, in the morning, she would be able to see Qin sighting. Shi Nianz woke up an hour earlier than usual. Although she still had to wear her school uniform, she still specially got up to look for Auntie Xiang to bring out the ironing machine. She ironed the clean school uniform in her room and put it on. She looked at Auntie Xiang and said, "Auntie Xiang, I'm sorry. When it was finally time to go out, she went downstairs to take 2 pieces of bread and left. Seeing her anxious look, her parents didn't ask anything and just let her go. After getting into Uncle Chin's car, she took a look at the time. Uncle Chin smiled when he saw her like this. As he started the engine, he said, "Girls nowadays seem to have stars in their eyes when they're in love." In what way was she in love? She just liked him and worshipped him for no reason, okay? It was probably the kind of worship that poor students had for the top students. But was it that obvious? Forget it. It didn't matter if it was obvious or not. What was important was that she could see Qin's sighting today. Perhaps it was because she was looking forward to it too much that she had been worried along the way that Qin's sighting would not go to school on time today. Would he have something to do or something? Although he was in his 3rd year of high school, he would not take leave unless there was something important. Even mini competitions had been postponed. After all, studying for the college entrance examination was more important. She worried the entire way. When she arrived at the school gate, she looked left and right when she got out of the car. She even glanced in the direction where she had met Qin's sighting previously, but she did not see him. With all kinds of worries in her heart, she entered the school gate and entered the classroom. As soon as she entered the classroom, she lowered her head to check her uniform. Suddenly, she saw a white figure in front of her and almost bumped into him. She raised her head abruptly and saw the person in front of her. Time seemed to have returned to the scene on the field at the beginning of the previous semester. The clean and good-looking young man in a white shirt stood in front of her. He glanced at her indifferently because she had lowered her head and almost bumped into him. The moment she met Qin's sighting's gaze, her expression changed from confusion to joy. Then, her heart that had been floating seemed to instantly fall to the ground. He had actually arrived earlier than her. When she saw his clothes, she turned to look at the others around her. "Why aren't you wearing your school uniform? Today was the first day of school. He should be wearing his school uniform." Qin's sighting was as calm as before. His gaze swept past her face, and his voice was as clear as a cold spring. "I caught an early flight from Japan and arrived at school half an hour ago. I didn't go back to get my school uniform." "Ah, he went to Japan. He wasn't in the country these days?" Then on her birthday, did he reply to her message in Japan? "Then what about your school uniform?" She paused for a moment and found a topic that would allow her to talk normally and restore her inner reason and calm. "Someone will send it over. It's almost here. I'm about to go get it." Qin's sighting glanced at the time and then at her. "You're very early." Sure, Nianj had been worried that he would not come today. She was so worried that her palms were sweating. But on the surface, she looked calm and in a good mood. "That's right. It's the first day of school. Even if you're a bad student, you have to show the attitude of a 3rd-year student and be more positive. Besides, the early bird gets meat." Qin's sighting raised his brows coldly. "What meat? What meat? Of course it's you, this fat piece of meat." Sure, Nianj smiled but did not speak. She smiled at him and went to her seat to sit down. When she saw Qin's sighting's bag by the side, the stone in her heart finally landed. Previously, she was worried that the teacher would change everyone's seats in the new semester. She was worried that Qin's sighting would take this opportunity to sit in another seat or ask the teacher to change her seat. However, judging from his attitude earlier in his backpack, he didn't have such plans. When Zhao Shaoqing and the others entered the class, it was almost 7 o'clock. Everyone had not seen each other for a long time, and they had endless topics to talk about. They could discuss which boy's new hairstyle and which girl's new bangs were cut for a long time. Sure, Nianj did not participate in any of the topics. She only sat in her seat and placed the books neatly on the table. She then glanced at Qin's sighting's bag and thought for a moment. She did not rashly search through his bag again. She only tidied up the scattered books and papers on his table. Looking at his handwriting, she felt that a good-looking boy's writing would definitely be very good-looking. This sentence was the truth. When Qin's sighting returned with his school uniform, he saw the neatly arranged books and papers on the table. He then glanced at the books on her table that were arranged at the same angle. Almighty Qin, happy new school. Shi Nianj turned to him and smiled brightly. Chapter 1465. Seeing Qin's sighting sit down, Shi Nianj turned to look at him, and used her eyes to describe his handsome and beautiful outline. She said, "In the new semester, the teacher will rearrange the seats, right? I don't really want to change seats. Can the two of us not change?" Qin's sighting raised his brows slightly, and turned to look at her. Shi Nianj smiled at him. Can I not change seats?" He did not answer, but his gaze, which seemed to have seen through her, made her feel a little ashamed. However, she did not want to retreat. Her heart was already burning, but she remained calm on the surface. Regarding the change of seats, it was true. She had heard from House Xiuxia that their class would change seats every semester. However, Qin's sighting had always been sitting here. Even if he changed seats, he was still alone. Firstly, he did not like to sit with others. Secondly, no one dared to come close to him and be frozen by an iceberg all day. Even if the teacher requested to change seats, he might not be able to. Early in the morning, she went from worry to relief to joy, and then to worry again. When the form teacher, Teacher Zhao, entered the class to call the roll, he simply asked everyone about the situation during the winter vacation, and asked if they had any thoughts about changing seats. Almost half of the students said that they could change seats. Whether it was men and women sitting together or friends sitting together, the teacher's idea was that those who were too close should not be together. Otherwise, it would be easy for them to chat with each other in class and affect the progress of their studies. Under the teacher's arrangements, everyone was changing seats one by one. Almost everyone was walking around the other desks with their bags and books. Shi Nianj sat there motionless and did not say a word. Qin's sighting did not seem to be affected at all. Everyone else was walking around. He closed his eyes and sat quietly, pretending to sleep to pass the boring time. When Teacher Zhao realized that there was no movement from their side, he asked from the podium, Shi Nianj, Qin's sighting, aren't the two of you going to change seats? In fact, Teacher Zhao was very surprised that Shi Nianj could actually sit by Qin's sighting's side for a week. Now that there was a chance to change seats, with Qin's sighting's temper, he would definitely get up and find another seat to sit down. This way, it would not be good for Shi Nianj to sit down again. However, neither of them stood up. Shi Nianj wanted to openly say that she didn't want to change, but the teacher was looking at Qin's sighting, so it wasn't convenient for her to speak. She only smiled at the teacher and brushed it off. Nian Nian, aren't you going to trade? The class monitor happened to come over from the front. He turned back to look in Shi Nianj's direction and pointed to the seat next to him with his eyes, indicating that she could sit next to him. Shi Nianj shook her head. The class monitor seemed a little surprised. After all, although she had sat at Qin's sighting's place for a week, she had very little interaction with Qin's sighting. The atmosphere between them was still very cold. With Shi Nianj's cheerful and lively personality, she shouldn't be very happy in such a cold atmosphere. She actually didn't plan to escape from that iceberg. I can sit here. I ranked 7th in the previous mock exam. That's not bad. I can also help you with your studies and tutor you. The class monitor placed his bag on the seat by the side, indicating that he didn't want anyone else to sit. His eyes were still looking in Shi Nianj's direction, clearly insisting that she go over. The class monitor was a tall and handsome boy with glasses. He had a buzz cut, and always seemed to carry the heroic spirit of a student leader. Shi Nianj had not interacted much with him. It seemed like she had only brought House Xiuxia to the infirmary and the hospital with him when she had a stomachache. Later on, they only interacted with each other in terms of their studies, and did not contact each other in private. Seeing that the class monitor seemed to want her to go over, Shi Nianj did not want to go. However, Qin's sighting's completely cold attitude made her feel a little embarrassed. Teacher Zhao was still watching from the side. He signaled her with his eyes, clearly asking her to go to the class monitor's side. After all, Shi Nianj's grandfather had told him that he hoped that after Shi Nianj was promoted to the 3rd year of high school, Someone would help her when she faced the pressure of her studies. Last semester, Teacher Zhao had told her to go to another seat, but this child's temper was really stubborn. It had been an entire semester, and she still hadn't changed. Now, she actually didn't plan to change? Seeing that Shi Nianj was still sitting there firmly, Teacher Zhao looked at Qin Sighting, who had been sitting there quietly with his eyes closed. Student Qin, do you and Shi Nianj plan to stay in your original position or change seats? Everyone was busy moving their books and things. Only a small number of people noticed the situation here, but they only took a glance, and then went to chat happily with their new desk mates. The class was noisy, and Shi Nianj's heart was also noisy. The class monitor walked over, and was about to move Shi Nianj's book over. Shi Nianj saw that the teacher and the class monitor were planning to move her away from Qin Sighting. For a moment, she could not help but suspect if Qin Sighting had privately requested it from the teacher. In fact, Qin Sighting did not want to sit together anymore. Her heart was in a mess. She subconsciously reached under the table and gently tugged on the sleeve of the person beside her. Qin Sighting opened his eyes and turned to look at her. Shi Nianj also turned to look at him. Nian Nian, give me your bag. I'll bring it over for you. The class monitor had just picked up a few of her books when he glanced at her bag on the seat and reached over. Before his hand could touch her bag, Qin Sighting's gaze finally turned to him. He coldly glanced at the class monitor. She's not changing. Teacher Zhao was still thinking about how to help Shi Nianj improve the learning atmosphere in the last semester of high school. The class monitor she had arranged to go over was indeed pulling her. However, she never expected Qin Sighting to speak. The class monitor was also startled. His hand was still in midair and did not touch her bag. At this moment, Shi Nianj quickly placed her school bag on the other side where his hand could not touch it. She subconsciously moved her body closer to Qin Sighting's side. Although her movements were very subtle, Teacher Zhao, who was standing on the podium, saw it clearly. His eyelids twitched, and at the same time, he saw that Qin Sighting did not seem to be disgusted. He understood. These young children nowadays. The Qin family and the Shi family could not afford to offend anyone. However, it was rare for Qin Sighting to accept someone by his side. Furthermore, he would not accept changing seats after a semester. Shi Nianj was so willing, so forget it. All right, Lin Su, go back to your seat. Teacher Zhao finally spoke. The class monitor responded, and then looked thoughtfully at Qin Sighting's indifferent side profile. He then looked at Shi Nianj's focused expression and left helplessly. Chapter 1466. No words could express Shi Nianj's current feelings. This feeling filled her heart and remained there for several days. Qin Sighting was too good. In fact, under the circumstances where the teacher and the class monitor, Lin Su, clearly wanted to change her seat, if he really didn't like her sitting by his side, he could have remained silent. But he kept her. In the next few days, Shi Nianj maintained this slightly touched emotion in her heart. When she recalled that Qin Sighting had taken the books from the class monitor's hands and placed them on her desk, she felt full of energy. She had to study hard. She couldn't be left behind by the top student. For the next few days, when she slept, she would hold her phone and look at the screen, constantly calling Qin Sighting's name in her heart. Although he did not send her any more text messages, just these chat records were enough for her to savor for several days. It had been 3 or 4 days since school started. These 3 or 4 days were peaceful, as though the storm of changing seats had finally passed. Many of the students who had changed seats had officially entered the state of preparing for the college entrance examination. Hao Xiuxia and Zhao Xiaoqing did not change seats either. The two of them seemed to have sat together in the first year of high school. Later, they changed seats and changed back last semester. This time, they did not change seats, and the teacher did not say anything. After all, they were both students in the last 2 rows. Her parents had already gone abroad again. Shi Nianj returned to Lishui Villa as usual. When Auntie Xiang and Uncle Qin sent her here, they prepared a lot of delicious food for her. The next morning, Shi Nianj brought the chocolates that Auntie Xiang had brought her to school. The chocolates were for Zhao Xiaoqing and Hao Xiuxia. There was also a box of fruit that she had personally cut in the morning. She placed it in a fresh-keeping box and planned to give it to Qin Siding. She didn't know why she always liked to bring gifts or food for her good friends. In fact, they weren't expensive things, but she always felt that she couldn't finish them alone. It would be a pity to leave so many delicious food in Lishui Villa for more than 2 days. She might as well eat with her friends. She sat in the classroom for half an hour in the morning. As expected, Qin Siding came to school at about the same time as usual. Seeing him unhurriedly enter from the door and sit by her side with his shoulder bag, Shi Nianj recalled what her parents had said to her before they went abroad. While they were young, everyone was still very simple. If they liked him, they could fight for it. Don't miss it, and don't leave any regrets for yourself. Thus, she looked at him with a pair of starry eyes. Qin Siding also glanced at her. He was expressionless, but for some reason, Shi Nianj felt that he seemed to be in a good mood today. His expression was also relatively peaceful. Almighty Qin! Shi Nianj called her softly. Good morning. She thought that Qin Siding would not respond, or that he would just give a faint "in" like usual. Unexpectedly, he opened his mouth and calmly said, Good morning. Shi Nianj's heart melted at this moment. She quickly lowered her head and pretended to check last night's homework. Her heart was beating so fast that she could only think of a way to calm herself down. Qin Siding greeted her good morning. He had said happy birthday and good morning. She was fine. Very good. Very good. Although they did not change seats, everyone had changed seats this time. Therefore, her and Qin Siding's seats were moved from the row by the window to the row by the other wall and door. Behind them was Hao Xiuxia's side, which was the back door of the class. It was also the position where the teacher often stood outside to launch a surprise attack. This new position had a good line of sight. At the very least, there was no need to draw the curtains to block the blinding sunlight. There was a high wall next to her. When she was tired, she could lean against it for a while. When she sat here, Shi Nianj took the initiative to ask to sit against the wall. Qin Siding agreed. He only changed his left and right seats with her. Everything else remained the same. Shi Nianj was actually a little scheming. This was because every time she was about to go out after class, she could talk to Qin Siding. For example, Almighty Qin, I'm going out for a while. I'm back. I'm going out to buy water. I'm going to get something from the teacher. As he was sitting outside, she had to tell him if she wanted to go out from her seat. This way, there would be more space for communication. Right now he would more or less respond, even if it was just a "in." After another half a month, because Shi Nianj remembered the time Qin Siding would arrive at school, she kept the time and waited outside the school gates. When she saw that he was indeed walking over from that path, she immediately walked quickly toward him. Good morning. Shi Nianj usually wore her school uniform in a well-behaved manner. In the entire third year of high school, Shi Nianj was the only girl with a particularly good family background. However, unlike other girls, she did not find opportunities to put on makeup and do her hair from time to time, or wear all kinds of strange clothes during weekend tutoring. She wore her school uniform from Monday to Friday. She had 3 sets, and she washed and changed them back and forth. On weekends, she wore very ordinary clothes, and most of them were student clothes. She looked clean, and she never wore any luxuries that matched her family background. After so long, the only change in her body was that she had changed to a new phone, but it was not the especially expensive one. Instead, it was a white and delicate phone with comprehensive functions. Furthermore, she had specially thought of a way to keep the text messages between her and Qin Siding. When she changed her phone, she struggled for a long time. Later, she asked Uncle Tai to go to the operator's side to help her think of a way. Only then did she successfully keep the text messages on her new phone. Qin Siding glanced at her. Good morning. Another 3 words. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but if the time he treated her to a meal was considered perfunctory, now when he occasionally spoke to her and responded to her, he was quite serious and no longer perfunctory. Shi Nianj simply stood by his side and followed him in. She really liked the feeling of being able to enter the school gates with him until the end of the class. Furthermore, because he was sitting outside, he would stand there and wait for her to sit inside. This small interaction could make her happy for the entire day. When they entered the school gates, she stood by Qin Sighting's side. Seeing that he was already used to her following him, and did not seem to reject it at all, she leaned behind him and whispered, "I remember that the Qin family should be on the left. Why do you always come from the main road in the middle? Don't you usually come home to stay?" Chapter 1467. Qin Sighting glanced at her. "You don't live in this direction. How do you always bump into me?" Nianj choked. Yes, the Shi family and the Lishui villa she was currently living in were on the right. This morning, she had specially waited for him under the tree on the middle road. "How do you know which direction I live in?" "Every day, when I enter and exit the school gate, I'll occasionally see where you get off the car. So you specially watched me get into the car? Did you see which direction I went back in?" Nianj's eyes lit up. Qin Sighting slowly answered, "I saw it once." "Just once? You're sure that I'm not in this direction just once?" Nianj said as she looked at him with a meaningful smile. This time, he simply ignored her and walked in calmly. In the next few days, Nianj simply waited for him under the tree on the middle road outside the school gate every day. Anyway, she said that she was passing by, and he knew that she was just spouting nonsense. He did not expose her. It was quite good to enter the school gate peacefully, hee. It was almost April in High City. It was cold in spring and freezing in autumn. Spring was the peak period for influenza. Many students in school had caught a cold and fell sick. However, because they were preparing for the college entrance examination, some people simply went to school with an 4 drip. Nianj thought that her body's resistance had always been good, but in the end, she was unfortunately defeated by the illness. It wasn't easy for her to endure another weekend without Qin Sighting. On Monday morning, she was about to wait for him under the tree outside the school gate as usual, but she really couldn't get out of bed. Afraid that she would be late, she could only call Uncle Qin. Uncle Qin usually wasn't at the Shi family's side. His house was nearby, and he drove for 5 minutes to Lishui Villa. Nianj struggled to get up from the bed to wash up. She felt dizzy and could not hold on any longer, but the teacher had said that she should not take leave if she could. Since everyone had endured it, she would not be so delicate. At most, she would not attend morning exercises and physical education classes during the day. She would just lie in the classroom. Uncle Qin saw that her expression was too ugly, and asked her if she wanted to take a day off. She didn't agree. After packing up, she got into the car. In fact, this place was only 10 minutes away from the school. Uncle Qin handed her the thermos cup and asked her to drink more water. When Nianj took it, she deliberately avoided his hand, afraid that Uncle Qin would find out that she was having a fever. She had just woken up. Although she had a fever, it could not be seen on her face. She could only see that she was a little haggard. She sat in the car with her eyes closed all the way until the car stopped outside the school gate. Uncle Qin turned around to look at her, and saw that her cheeks were already showing signs of redness. She sat in the back seat dispiritedly, and leaned her head against the window. She was sleeping soundly. Uncle Qin reached out and gently touched her forehead. He immediately frowned. This child, she didn't even say anything when she had such a high fever. He saw that many students had already entered the school gate, but Nianj had been strangely coming to school early recently. Uncle Qin glanced at the time. There were still about 20 minutes before she went to study on time in the morning. He quickly took out a clean towel from the spare box in the car and gently covered her. Seeing that she was sleeping soundly due to the high fever and had not woken up, he parked the car and went to the pharmacy to buy medicine. However, Nianj woke up a few minutes after Uncle Qin got out of the car. When she opened her eyes, she was a little confused. She raised her hand and touched her surroundings. She wanted to sit up properly and get out of the car. But the moment her head left the window and her body moved, it was as though there was a large pool of water spinning in her mind. It made her dizzy and she even felt like vomiting. At that moment, she leaned back and closed her eyes, not daring to move. Uncle Chin. Her voice was slightly hoarse as she leaned against the car. She didn't know if Uncle Chin was sitting in the driver's seat. She hummed in discomfort. Uncle Chin, help me go, under the tree in front. Her voice became softer and softer. In the end, she didn't know what she was saying. She raised her hand and weakly put it down. She leaned her head against the window. She felt that the window was very cold. Sticking her head here would make her feel much more comfortable. Uncle Chin went to buy antipyretics and returned. As he walked, he called the Sher family's helper. Auntie Xiang had returned to her hometown for the past few days and wasn't in High City. She could only find someone Sher Nianj trusted and was familiar with to take care of her. Otherwise, she would be worried if she went to school like this. She had to find someone to accompany her in Li Shui Villa. Just as he was about to return to the car, Uncle Chin suddenly noticed that there seemed to be someone standing under the tree in front of him. He looked like a young man, but he only hurriedly passed by to take a look before walking over. He quickly returned to the car to give the Sher family's little ancestor some antipyretics. Sher Nianj was already in a daze from the fever in the car. She could vaguely hear the sound of the car door opening. Uncle Chin came over and said that he wanted her to take the antipyretics. She took it and continued to lean against the car door. Why didn't you say so? If I had known that you were so sick when we were in the villa, I wouldn't have brought you to school. Uncle Chin sighed. You've taken the antipyretics. I'll take you to the hospital. No need. Sher Nianj spoke hoarsely, but her head was still aching. She closed her eyes and asked hoarsely, What time is it now? 6:45. Sher Nianj frowned. Almost every day, she met Chin sighting under the tree from 6:50 to 7 o'clock a.m. She had been coincidentally meeting him every morning for more than a week. If she did not appear today, would he wait for her? Or would he directly enter school without feeling anything? What should she do? Uncle Chin, I don't want to go to the hospital. I want to get out of the car. Sher Nianj felt uncomfortable and wronged. She was usually very open-minded and never felt wronged. However, perhaps because her body was too uncomfortable, she really felt sad and wronged. She had already arrived at school. She was not far from that tree. She was not late. But what should she do? She could not get out of the car at all. As long as she moved slightly, she would feel dizzy and nauseous. She did not dare to move at all. However, would Chin sighting not take it seriously at all? If he did not see her appear, he would directly enter without even asking her. Why are you getting out of the car? There's a small hospital nearby, right? Last time, you said that you accompanied your classmate there. You have to go and take a look at your fever. The flu has been very serious recently. If you only take antipyretics, it might not be of much use. Go and take a look first. No, I want to get out of the car. You have to be obedient. Uncle Chin saw that she was suddenly so willful, and immediately used some strength. Although he was the Sher family's chauffeur, he had watched Sher Nianj grow up. He definitely could not allow her to enter school sick. Sher Nianj felt extremely wronged. Sher Nianj was extremely aggrieved. She heard him close the car door and prepare to drive. She quickly sat up in her seat and turned to look out of the car window. Recently, the higher-ups have been very strict. There has been an earthquake in the online literature circle. Almost all the novels are being blocked or changed. There are many situations where the first chapters are messed up. Everyone can just delete the book from the bookshelf and collect it again. At present, there are still many chapters in my book that have been blocked. I'll slowly change them myself. Chapter 1468. Sher Nianj immediately saw Chin sighting under the tree. However, he was standing there looking at his phone. She didn't know if it was because his phone suddenly rang when he walked there, so he stood there to take a look, or because he realized that she hadn't arrived, so he stood there waiting for her. But at least he was really there. Uncle Chin. Afraid that this was just an illusion, Sher Nianj quickly said, Help me, do me a favor. Let's go to the hospital first. We'll talk about the rest after your fever subsides. With that, Uncle Chin was about to drive away. No, I can go to the hospital. Help me tell the boy standing under the tree that I'm taking leave today. There's no need to tell him that I'm sick. Just tell him that I have something to do at the last minute, and ask him to help me keep the class notes. I'll come back tomorrow. Nianj felt that it was difficult for her to say such a long string of words. After speaking, she closed her eyes to rest for a while. Uncle Qin turned to look in the direction she was referring to. He thought to himself that when he passed by earlier, that good-looking young man seemed to be standing there. Why hadn't he left yet? He turned to look at Nianj and seemed to have thought of something. Did you make an appointment with him here? It's not really an appointment. Nianj was not in the mood to explain. She just wanted to tell Qin Siding before he entered the school gates. But she did not want to say that she was sick. Right now her mind was very confused. She subconsciously felt that he might be waiting for her, and told him not to wait any longer. However, it wasn't easy for him to wait for her. She really wanted to see him. She felt so wronged. Her tears were about to fall. She pressed her face against the window and said weakly and helplessly in a hoarse voice, "Uncle Qin, please help me, go and tell him." Seeing her anxious look, Uncle Qin sighed. "All right, wait." With that, he got out of the car. Uncle Qin looked at the time again, and remembered the time Nianj had just taken the fever medicine in case the doctor asked about it. He then walked all the way to the tree, and saw that the young man had shifted his gaze away from his phone. He walked over. "Hello, I'm the Sure family's chauffeur." Qin Siding put down his phone and looked at him. "Our young mistress has something to do today. She might have to take a day off to rest. She asked me to tell you not to wait for her. Also, please help me make a copy of her class notes. She'll get it when she comes to school tomorrow." After Uncle Qin finished speaking, he felt that his mission was over. He turned around and left. Qin Siding did not speak at first. Then, he looked in the direction Uncle Qin had gone, and the car parked not far away. He said, "There are only 100 days left before the college entrance examination. Why did she apply for leave?" Uncle Qin paused for a moment. Although he remembered that this young man seemed to be from the Qin family, Nianj was currently having a high fever. From his tone, it seemed as though it was unreasonable for him to ask for leave. He turned back unhappily and said, "She doesn't want to ask for leave, but who doesn't have urgent matters all year round?" "She's in the car?" Qin Siding had already walked over. There was no extra expression on his face, but his voice was indifferent and firm. Uncle Qin was stunned. "How did you know?" Hearing his tacit agreement, Qin Siding did not answer. Instead, he looked at the car in front of him. If she wasn't in that car, how could she have known that he would be standing here waiting for her? Qin Siding walked toward the car. Uncle Qin quickly went forward in surprise. "I think it's close to your morning self-study time. You should enter the school." "Is she sick?" Qin Siding completely ignored his words and changed the topic. Uncle Qin paused for a moment before saying, "It's probably the flu. She's having a high fever." "Open the car door. Let me take a look." It was an indifferent and commanding tone. He was not discussing with him. Perhaps because the person in front of him was from the Qin family, Uncle Qin did not feel that there was anything wrong with his tone. However, Nianj had just told him not to let him know that she was sick. Now, not only did he say it, but Qin Siding also wanted to see her. If he opened the car door, Nianj would probably be very angry. She was already very sick. "If I remember correctly, you're the little young master of the Qin family. After all, you're the young master of one of the 4 big families in High City. It's not good for me to offend you, but our miss doesn't want to see anyone right now. The little girl's condition isn't very good when she's sick, so it's understandable that she doesn't want to see anyone. You should enter the school." She originally wanted to force herself to come to school, but now that she's having a fever, she's a little dazed. "I'll send her to the hospital right away." Uncle Qin's words were neither servile nor overbearing. Even though he was the young master of the Qin family, the Sure family was not a small character. Even if there was some ambiguous feelings between these young people, as an elder, he could not let Nianj go when she was sick. Uncle Qin's words were neither servile nor overbearing. However, Qin Siding remained standing on the spot. His gaze was indifferent and cold. "I'll just take a look at her. After confirming that there's nothing wrong, I'll leave." Seeing Qin Sighting's seemingly indifferent but cold attitude, Uncle Qin hesitated for a moment. He recalled how Nianj had been in a hurry to get out of the car and raise her head to look out the window. Perhaps she really liked this kid. Or perhaps she just wanted to take a look at him to be at ease. It did not seem good for him to stop her. After hesitating for a moment, Uncle Qin said, "Just you wait." With that, Uncle Qin turned to open the car door at the back. He looked at Nianj, who was leaning against the car door. Her face was getting redder and redder because of the fever. She did not move. "Nian Nian." There was no response. "Miss." There was still no response. Uncle Qin was worried that something had happened to her because her fever was too serious. He quickly let go of the car door and leaned close to touch her forehead. With this touch, he frowned even more. He turned around and saw that Qin Sighting had already walked over. "The fever is too serious. I called twice, but there's no reaction. We have to go to the hospital." Qin Sighting was outside the car door. He leaned down slightly and saw Nianj, who was sitting motionless in the car. Her neck was already red, but there was no reaction. Uncle Qin was about to close the car door and drive to the hospital. However, at this moment, Qin Sighting raised his hand and pressed it against the car door, stopping him from closing it. The hospital opposite the school is only a small clinic. There are too many unknown causes for a high fever. Don't go to a small hospital. Go straight to the fever clinic and emergency department of the city hospital. "Ah, but the city hospital is too far from here. Nian Nian is behind. I'll drive. You take care of her from the back." His tone was still cold and commanding. Uncle Qin didn't know what he was thinking. An adult in his 40s was actually stunned by the aura of a child who wasn't even 20 years old. He subconsciously handed the electronic car key to him. Qin Sighting took the car key and threw his black shoulder bag into the car. He then signaled for Uncle Qin to get in the car and sit in the back to support Nianj. He walked around the car, opened the door on the driver's side and sat in. Chapter 1469. At this moment, Nianj was completely unconscious, but she was not completely unconscious. Uncle Qin supported her from behind, so that she could sit steadily. However, although Qin Sighting was young, his driving skills were not bad. He was fast and stable. When the lights changed at the intersection, he would not brake too quickly. Nianj basically did not need to be supported, and she would not fall from her seat. However, Uncle Qin was still worried. He helped her buckle her seatbelt. After all, Nianj was a young girl. It was not convenient for Uncle Qin to hold her with his hands. He could only occasionally hold her shoulders and head. Along the way, Qin Sighting did not speak. Uncle Qin glanced at the time and asked, "Don't you need to go to class?" "It's fine." Qin Sighting saw that there was a traffic jam ahead, due to the morning rush hour. He decisively turned the car into a small road. There were quite a few cars on this road, and the road in the middle was very narrow. Even Uncle Qin, who had been driving for decades, had to drive carefully. However, Qin Sighting did not slow down at all and drove very steadily. After successfully driving past, he drove to the main road that was not blocked for the time being and successfully drove toward the road closest to the hospital. Uncle Qin turned to look at Nianj, who was still sleeping with her head lowered. "I just gave her some fever medicine, but the medicine probably hasn't taken effect yet. It's still so hot. I don't know how long she had a fever last night. She only called me in the morning," Uncle Qin said as he sighed. "She rarely returns to the family?" At this moment, Qin Sighting stopped the car at an intersection where the lights had changed. He glanced back through the rearview mirror and saw Nianj pressing her forehead against the door in pain and frowning. "Yes, Nian Nian has been very independent since she was young. Now that her parents are not in the country, she found a place near the school and has been living by herself." Uncle Qin sighed. "Thankfully, she called me in the morning and asked me to pick her up. Otherwise, if she maintained this state and stayed at home with a high fever for an entire day, who knows what would have happened." Qin Sighting glanced at Nianj in the rearview mirror again. At this moment, the lights in front turned from red to green, and he drove the car forward again. When they arrived at the hospital, Uncle Qin quickly unbuckled her seatbelt and helped her out of the car. Qin Siding got out of the car and was about to go in to help register when Uncle Qin suddenly recalled something. Wait a minute. I'll go back to the car to get something. Help Nian in first. As he spoke, he quickly helped Nian to Qin Siding. When Qin Siding reached out to help her, Uncle Qin quickly went to the car to take out the blanket. He also took out his wallet and ID card. Right now, he was equivalent to half of Nian's elder. If her illness was too serious, he would have to handle any procedures. He had to bring all of these with him. Nian's body was trembling from the fever. She could not stand at all. Her legs were weak. After being supported by Qin Siding for less than a minute, her entire body fell down softly. However, the moment she almost fell, a strong arm grabbed her from behind and pressed her into his arms. Qin Siding did not need to touch her forehead. Just by touching her back through her clothes, he knew how serious her fever was. All right, let's go in. Uncle Qin walked over with something and rushed forward to drape a thin blanket over Nian. She's still trembling. Wrap her with a blanket. Qin Siding did not say anything. He only raised his hand to take it and wrapped it around her. When he saw that she could not walk at all and was about to stagger and fall after taking 2 steps, Uncle Qin quickly came over and said, "Let me do it. I'll send her in." "Thank you, young Master Qin. Go back to class." Qin Siding did not reply. He reached down and carried Nian horizontally. He turned around and quickly walked to the main entrance of the hospital's fever clinic. Uncle Qin watched by the side and opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but he felt that it was not appropriate for his girl to be suddenly carried. But at this time, forget it. By the time Uncle Qin rushed over after registering, Nian was already sitting on the fever clinic bed. She was half-conscious as she sat there. Her upper body was almost leaning into Qin Siding's arms by the bed. Her hot hands kept gripping the hem of his clothes, and she did not know that there were wrinkles. Her brows were furrowed and she hummed twice. She felt very uncomfortable. "How is it?" Uncle Qin came in and saw her in this state. He guessed that she did not even know who she was leaning on. "The doctor has written a test form. Let's go for a blood test first. Tell the doctor what time she took the fever medicine. I'll send her for a blood test first." After Qin Siding finished speaking, he helped Nian up again. After all, this was the hospital. It was not good to carry her all the way. Seeing that she had woken up slightly, he whispered into her ear, "Can you walk?" Nian vaguely felt that the voice was somewhat familiar. It sounded like Qin Siding, but she was not sure. She even felt that it was impossible, but it was too uncomfortable. She could not care too much. When her feet landed on the ground, although her legs were a little weak and her head was still spinning, she still nodded. Qin Siding helped her out. The place where the blood test was conducted was less than 100 meters away from the clinic. In the second half of the journey, she walked with some difficulty. Her head was almost leaning in his arms. Although it looked like she was being supported, in fact, she did not use any strength. She was being carried away. When the doctor came to draw blood, he saw that it was a little girl in school uniform. The clean young man beside her who had been taking care of her, supporting her, and even carrying her should be a student of the same age. Such a good-looking young couple really made the doctors and aunties, who were already past their teenage years, feel both tender and envious. Seeing that the girl was still in a daze after her blood was drawn, the good-looking and tall boy almost carried her away. The love of school days was really beautiful. The doctors and aunties covered their faces in envy. While waiting for the test results, Uncle Qin went to buy some breakfast. Nian did not eat much in the morning. Right now, she was still lying in the lounge waiting for her fever to subside. In a daze, Uncle Qin used a straw to feed her the soy milk cup. She only took 2 sips before vomiting. Thankfully, she only vomited to the side and did not stain her body. Uncle Qin sighed, his heart aching and anxious. Qin Siding did not return to school. Instead, he told the teacher that he was accompanying Nian in the hospital and did not hide anything. The form teacher was a little absent-minded after hanging up the phone. Shirnianj had a high fever. Qin Sighting sent her to the hospital. Chapter 1470. When the blood test results came out, Shirnianj's fever finally subsided a little, but it had not completely subsided. When she first came to the hospital in the morning, her temperature was 39.4 degrees Celsius. It was already 10 a.m., and her temperature was 38.6 degrees Celsius. She was still running a high fever, but at least she wouldn't vomit after drinking some water. She lay in the hospital's lounge. As her temperature had dropped, she felt more comfortable and could finally sleep comfortably. Qin Sighting took the test results to the outpatient clinic and returned not long after. Seeing that she was still sleeping, he placed the results by the side. "How is it? What did the doctor say? Is it the flu or something?" "It's a cold, but it's already in the realm of influenza B. She'll have a high fever for a few days." After speaking, Qin Sighting looked at the time. "Has she eaten?" "Not yet. She can eat the breakfast I bought for her in the morning. I fed her some soy milk and she vomited. However, she drank a few mouthfuls of water before falling asleep. It's okay. She didn't vomit. Think of a way to make her eat. Even if she vomits, she has to eat. She just took her medicine in the morning. She has to continue taking her medicine later. She can't go on an empty stomach," Qin Sighting said as he walked to the bed. The doctor said that there's no need to stay in the hospital for observation. Recently, there have been a lot of influenza viruses in the hospital. It's easier for her to be infected with influenza B here. Let her go back to rest, drink more water, and cool down physically. After the fever completely subsides, she'll be fine. Qin Sighting spoke and walked to the bed to look at Shirnianj, who was still sleeping. "All right, I'll send her back later," Uncle Qin said as he looked at the time thoughtfully. Qin Sighting glanced at him. "Did you take care of her after you went back?" "I should stay and take care of her. But I have something to do in the afternoon. The auntie who usually follows her closest has returned to her hometown. She'll only return to High City next week. As for the Sher family, I told them not to come after I sent her to the hospital. From the looks of it, I still have to call someone over. I'll call them over now." Qin Sighting glanced at Shirnianj, who was still sleeping. However, Shirnianj's home is indeed too far away. They'll probably arrive later. "I'll stay," Qin Sighting said. Uncle Qin looked at him in surprise. "You?" Qin Sighting looked up at him. "Is there a problem?" Of course there was a problem. Although you're the young master of the Qin family, you're still a man and a woman. Our Nian Nian is so beautiful, and the relationship between the two of you is so unclear. How could I leave you alone to take care of her?" Uncle Qin didn't dare to say this. He only said, "Send her back first." "Okay, I'll drive." Qin Sighting stood up and left. When Shirnianj was helped up again, she finally came back to her senses. Qin Sighting was no longer in the lounge. She turned to look at Uncle Qin and was stunned for a moment before saying, "Uncle Qin, why am I not in school? You still want to go to school with such a high fever? Do you want to be carried to the hospital by your classmates and teachers?" Uncle Qin glared at her. "All right, the doctor has already taken a look. It's just a viral cold, but if you don't pay attention, it might turn into influenza B. That will be even more uncomfortable and won't recover so quickly. I'll send you back to rest first. After you go back, eat something, take some medicine, and then lie down and sleep well. Don't go to school for the next 2 days." How could she not go to school? Shirnianj did not answer, and was helped out of the lounge. When she was helped to the car, she opened the car door and sat in. She looked up and saw Qin Sighting in the driver's seat. She was stunned for a moment, and her eyes were in a daze for a moment. Qin Sighting. Previously, when she was in a daze, she seemed to feel that he was by her side. At that time, she thought she was dreaming or confused from the fever. But he was really here? Why was he here? Did he and Uncle Qin send her to the hospital together? All right, don't be in a daze. Your good classmate came to the hospital without even attending class. Let's send you back first. Uncle Qin patted her shoulder from behind. Shirnianj finally returned to her senses. Only then did Nianj return to her senses. She quickly sat in the car, and sat by the driver's seat. She then poked her head out to look at the person sitting in front of her. "It's really you?" Qin Sighting glanced at her through the rearview mirror, and did not answer. Seatbelt. In fact, it didn't matter much even if she didn't wear a seat belt when sitting in the back. However, her stamina wasn't good right now. If she suddenly braked, she might hit the front. Nianj immediately buckled her seat belt obediently. She didn't dare to ask any more questions. As though she was afraid that this beautiful dream would be shattered, she didn't even speak. She just sat there, looking at Qin Sighting in front of her, and then turning to look out of the car window. Even though her head still hurt, her heart felt sweet. She didn't know if it was because of the fever or her mood, but she felt that her feet were floating. Uncle Qin told him the location of Lishui Villa, and Qin Sighting drove the car over. It turned out that Qin Sighting knew how to drive. Usually, he didn't take the family car or drive. He walked to school. It seemed like he lived very close to the school. She just didn't know which one was closer compared to Lishui Villa. In fact, it took more than 10 minutes to drive from Lishui Villa to the school. He walked to school, so he was probably closer than her. Along the way, because of her body, Nianj didn't have the strength to speak even though she was very excited. She just sat in the back, and looked at Qin Sighting from time to time. With Uncle Qin in the car, she was indeed too embarrassed to chat with Qin Sighting. However, she felt satisfied just looking at his back view from behind. He would actually accompany her to the hospital. Earlier, she was a little upset that she had delayed his lessons because she was sick, but this frustration was dispelled by her joy and excitement. Nianj sat in the back, the smile on her lips never disappearing. Uncle Qin sat by the side and saw everything clearly. He did not say much. After the car arrived at Lishui Villa, he helped her out of the car. So now, Qin Sighting should know where she usually lived and had been to her house. Nianj saw Qin Sighting help take out her bag from the car, and turned back to look at him. Qin Sighting returned the electronic car key to Uncle Qin, and did not leave immediately. Instead, he walked in with them. Qin Sighting actually entered her house? Nianj's heart was about to jump out. Her head hurt. But in an instant, she carefully recalled if she had thrown any fruit peels on the ground when she ate the fruits at home last night. Did she confiscate any clothes on the sofa? Was there anything else that she had not packed? If the house was too messy, wouldn't it be embarrassing? Uncle Qin, I'm still alive, right? Nianj looked at Qin Sighting's figure walking in front of her. As Uncle Qin was supporting her, she leaned close to him and asked softly. Uncle Qin glanced at her strangely. What inauspicious words are you talking about? Isn't it just a fever? That's right. I feel like I might have lost my mind from the fever. This was too unreal. Chapter 1471. After entering the house, Nianj quickly walked away from Uncle Qin, and went behind Qin Sighting. Sit down first. I'll go get some. Go back to your room to rest. Before she could finish speaking, Qin Sighting stopped in his tracks, and turned back to look at her. Nianj instinctively felt that since this was Qin Sighting's first time at her house, she should pour some water, or take out some food, or drink for him to sit down and rest. However, it was clear that in his eyes, she was only a patient and could not do anything. Nian Nian, go back to your room and lie down first. Uncle Qin gave her a look. In fact, there was another meaning in his gaze. Along the way, Uncle Qin realized that Nianj seemed to be very warm to Qin Sighting. There was always a feeling that his girl liked someone else more. But the other party was cold, and did not respond much. He still wanted her to take advantage of her illness to rest and calm down. Nianj's head was indeed hurting, but she could not show off now. Seeing that Qin Sighting did not treat her as an outsider, and did not need her to do anything, she still found some consciousness of being sick, and went upstairs to her room. However, after returning to her room, she tossed and turned but could not fall asleep. Even though her head hurt, she still could not fall asleep. After about 10 minutes, Uncle Qin knocked on the door and came in. Seeing that she was still awake, He came over and brought over a cup of hot water and antipyretic medicine. It's been a few hours since you took the medicine. You can take it again. Then, drink this cup of water. Shirnianj got up and took the medicine. She then turned to look out the door. After swallowing the medicine, she asked, "Where's Qin Sighting?" "He's downstairs. Don't worry, he hasn't left. Just sleep in peace." Uncle Qin took the cup from her and looked at the time. He then said, "But I have to leave in half an hour. The child has something to do at school this afternoon. The child's mother doesn't have time to go. I have to go over. Can you stay at home?" "I'll just sleep. What's wrong with that? Go do whatever you need to do." Shirnianj gently waved her hand. However, she suddenly remembered that Qin Sighting was still here. Before she could ask, Uncle Qin said, "I've called the Shi family. Your Auntie Lu and Auntie Su will come to take care of you later. However, it'll take at least an hour for them to rush over. I'll let Qin Company stay here with you for a while. When they arrive, I'll let him go back." In other words, there would be time alone with Qin Sighting later? All right. Shirnianj smiled. Seeing her smile, Uncle Qin knew what she was thinking. He smiled helplessly and got up to leave. At the thought that she would have time alone with Qin Sighting later, Shirnianj could not fall asleep. She tossed and turned on the bed for a long time, and picked up the thermometer to measure the temperature. It was 38 degrees, and she did not feel as uncomfortable as in the morning. When she suddenly heard the sound of a car, she quickly got up from the bed, and went to the window to see Uncle Qin's car drive away. Auntie Lu and Auntie Su, who were rushing over from the Shi family, called at this moment. They said that there was a traffic jam on the way, and it would take at least half an hour for them to arrive. "All right, I'm fine. I don't have a high fever like I did in the morning. I feel much better." Situ say. Speak. Tang I he Qin Li he Sighting Qing I, Sighting. When he heard her talking on the phone, he turned around and glanced at her, who was standing on the stairs. "Uncle Qin asked you to stay here with me?" She hung up the phone and walked down. "N," Qin Sighting answered. When he saw that she had come down, he asked, "Why aren't you sleeping in your room?" "I slept well last night, and I slept for so long in the hospital in the morning. Even if I have a headache, I can't sleep." As she spoke, she looked out the window. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing." Qin Sighting saw that her expression was still ugly. He walked over and stood in front of her for a while, lowering his eyes to look at her. The person she liked the most was standing in front of her, with one hand in his trouser pocket, looking down at her. They were standing very close to each other, so close that if she raised her head slightly, their breaths would be intertwined. She could clearly smell the scent on his body. It was a clean and refreshing mint scent, with a hint of detergent softener. It was clear and refreshing, with a hint of fragrance. "What's the temperature now?" he asked. "I took a look just now. 38 degrees, she answered obediently. "N, you don't want to sleep?" "I can't sleep. With you here, I can't sleep. It's rare for us to be alone. When the two Shi family's aunties come over, we won't have such a chance. She definitely wouldn't use such a rare time to sleep." "All right, sit down first." As Qin Sighting spoke, he raised his hand and was about to touch her forehead. However, before he could touch her, he suddenly saw her look up with stars in her eyes. He paused and retracted his hand. Shirnianj turned around and sat on the sofa. Then, like an obedient primary school student, she turned to look at him, waiting for his next order. Seeing her expression, Qin Sighting did not say anything. He only looked at her haggard appearance. "Did you vomit everything you ate this morning? N, can you still eat now?" "I don't know. I don't feel hungry right now. I don't have an appetite. I'll go get some food. Why don't you try some?" Shirnianj's expression changed from obedient to surprised. "Do you want to cook?" Actually, what she wanted to ask was, "Do you actually know how to cook?" However, she felt that it wasn't good to say these words. Qin Sighting didn't seem like someone who would casually boast. If he said he knew how to cook, he probably knew how to cook. In fact, the two aunties from the Shi family came to take care of her, and specially came to cook for her. However, compared to these, she naturally wanted to eat Qin Sighting's cooking. Qin Sighting did not answer. He only raised his brows, asking her if she wanted to eat or not. Eat, eat, eat. I'll eat whatever you cook. He glanced at her again and snorted. He did not answer her obviously infatuated words, and turned to look for the ingredients in her kitchen. Nianj rushed to follow closely. Standing outside the kitchen door, she saw that he had already gone in to open the refrigerator. She stuck her head out and said, "There are fruits and various vegetables in the refrigerator. They were all prepared by Auntie Xiang when she came over. As this villa is a little far from the supermarket, there seems to be a lot of frozen things. Otherwise, there's no need to go through too much trouble." Chapter 1472. Not to mention glutinous rice balls or frozen dumplings. Even if it was a cup of water that Almighty Qin had personally boiled for her, she could drink it like it was immortal water. After looking at the ingredients in the fridge, Qin Siding said, "It's best to eat something that's easy to digest during a fever. Glutinous rice balls are not easy to digest." "Oh, then anything is fine. Porridge is fine, noodles are fine too. How about noodles? There might be some noodles in the cupboard." Nianj pointed in the direction of the cupboard. In fact, she would also cook some food. After all, she was used to being independent since she was young. However, she did not cook much. However, she would notice what ingredients were at home when she went into the kitchen to pour water. With her current condition, although she should drink some nutritious food to nourish her body, she would probably vomit out some oily meat soup. The doctor had told her that it was best not to eat eggs, beef, or seafood for a few hours after taking the fever medicine. After Qin Siding found the noodles, he put them in the water to cook. He did not say, and she did not ask. She just felt that no matter what he made, she would definitely be able to eat it. Nianj could not stand any longer. She had a fever and had yet to eat anything. Her legs were still weak. She turned around and walked back to the sofa to wait. She leaned against the sofa and sat for a while. Not long after, she smelled a fragrance. When Qin Siding brought out 2 bowls of noodles, she poked her head into the bowl and saw that it was 2 bowls of golden and alluring onion oil noodles. "Come and eat." Qin Siding placed the noodles on the dining table by the kitchen. "I'll get the chopsticks." Nian stood up and rushed to prepare the cutlery. "There's no need. I saw the chopsticks on it. I'll take them. Sit down." Qin Siding did not look at her, and had already entered the kitchen. Nianj was so happy that she could not hide the smile on her lips. She quickly sat down at the dining table. Qin Siding came over and handed her the chopsticks. She took it, and was too embarrassed to keep staring at him. She directly focused her attention on the onion oil noodles in front of her. After taking a bite, the smile on her lips widened. "You still have to get used to it." Qin Siding saw her expression and asked calmly, "It's delicious. Of course I'm used to it." It was so delicious that she was almost moved. He knew that she had a cold and fever, and could not eat many things. Otherwise, it would affect the efficacy of the fever medicine. So he only made the simplest scallion oil noodles without any messy things. He also knew that she did not have much taste in her mouth right now. If she ate too light soup, she would definitely not be able to eat it, and it would be easy for her to vomit. So he simply made this more appetizing scallion oil noodles. However, he did not put much oil in it. It looked faintly golden, and when it entered the mouth, it was also very fragrant. It was not too oily or salty at all. In short, it was extremely delicious. She would never throw up again with this bowl of noodles. Seeing that she liked it, Qin Siding picked up his chopsticks. Without asking, she guessed that he probably did not eat much in the morning, so he had only made 2 bowls. When she was halfway through eating, Nianj felt that she was after all the owner of this house. Qin Siding was a guest, but she still needed him to cook for her. She put down her chopsticks awkwardly and said, "If I had known that it would be so serious this morning, I would have rested at home. If I hadn't gone to school, you probably wouldn't have seen it, and wouldn't have delayed my classes. Send me to the hospital. There are still 3 months before the college entrance examination. I'm really sorry for delaying your classes." "And it's fine." Nianj's heart was filled with joy. She really did not know what to say. She hoped that there would be fewer main courses in school today, and not delay him. However, it seemed like he would occasionally read books in advance. Perhaps he had already read the things he had to learn today, and had already learned them. That time, when he went out for the competition, there were quite a lot of courses in those days, but later on, he knew all the questions related to the exam. Therefore, it should not be a problem if it was just one day. With this thought in mind, she felt slightly more at ease. She then looked at the person opposite her. Not only did Qin Sighting send her to the hospital and accompany her in the hospital, but he also came to her house. Now, he was actually sitting here with her at her house and eating with her. Furthermore, he had personally made the scallion noodles. It was really hard to imagine what Qin Sighting's usual life was like. As a member of the Qin family, he actually knew how to make such delicious noodles. Could it be that he was used to taking care of himself, and rarely asked the servants and aunties to help him? This was really a bonus. What should she do? She really liked him. She liked him so much that she felt that in the future, she wanted to make a mark on the bowl he was using now. In the future, when she ate, she would definitely use that bowl. No matter how many times it had been washed in the dishwasher, those were all bowls that Qin Sighting had touched. She felt that she could place them by the bed and stare at them every day. As she watched Qin Sighting eat quietly, Shinian's heart continued to race. The way he ate was really good-looking. After the meal, Shinian could not help but ask Qin Sighting, "When I was in the car in the morning, I saw you under that tree. Did you happen to pass by at that time? Or, were you waiting for me?" Qin Sighting looked at her. When Shinian thought that he would not answer her question, he slowly said, "Waiting for you." Shinian's mouth was slightly agape. She looked at Qin Sighting, and felt that her breathing was not smooth. Her brain seemed to be filled with something and blocked. She could not come back to her senses. He was waiting for her. Was he waiting for her under the tree where she had been waiting for him recently? Shinian's heart churned. Why would you wait for me?" Qin Sighting did not answer her, because the two aunties of the Shi family had arrived and pressed the doorbell. Shinian stood up to open the door, but she turned back to look at Qin Sighting, wanting to hear what he would say. However, it was as though he had not said anything. He lowered his head to look at the time on his phone. The door opened, and Auntie Lu and Auntie Sue walked in with various bottles and cans in their hands. At the same time, they sized her up nervously. "Nian Nian, Io little ancestor. Why didn't you tell us earlier that you were sick? We could have come earlier. When we were at home, we were in a hurry, and didn't have time to cook anything. Now, we're here to cook something for you. Just wait." "No need, Auntie Lu. I've eaten." Shinian chuckled. "You've eaten? Did you make it yourself?" The two aunties were surprised. "No, it's my classmate. He accompanied me to the hospital in school today, and then came back with Uncle Qin to take care of me for a while. He made some simple food. I'm already very full." At the mention of Qin Sighting, Shinian felt her ears heat up. As she spoke, she even glanced at the clean young man behind her. Chapter 1473. The two aunties had seen the fairy-like young man when they entered the door, but since Shinian was sick, they did not ask too much. Now they shifted their attention back to Qin Sighting. At first they were surprised, but then they quickly said, "It's good that you've eaten. We were afraid that it would be too late to cook here. Why aren't you going back to your room to rest? What are you still doing here? Didn't you have a fever?" "I'm much better now. I can't sleep even if I keep lying down. Besides, I just ate. If I lie down directly, my stomach won't feel well." "That's right. Then all of you rest. Your Auntie Sue and I will go get some fruits for you and your classmates to eat. If you're sick, drink more water and eat more fruits and vegetables. The two of us will stay here tonight until you recover." "I don't think it's possible. Don't stay in Lishui Villa alone. Come back to the Shi family with us." Auntie Lu was usually talkative, but now, she was nagging nonstop. "No, the Shi family is too far from the school. This place is close to the school, and it's convenient to go to school. There's no need to wake up so early. You know that I'm in my 3rd year of high school. I leave early and return late every day. There's no need to waste so much time on the road. As Shi Nianj spoke, she glanced back at Qin Sighting, meaning that he could help her testify how tight the school time was. Qin Sighting's beautiful brows moved slightly, but he did not say much. When the 2 aunties looked at him, he nodded politely as a form of courtesy. After the 2 aunties arrived, Qin Sighting had no reason to continue staying here. Even if Shi Nianj didn't want him to leave, it was already past 12 o'clock. He could return to school before 1 in the afternoon. This way, he would only be delaying half of his lessons. No matter how reluctant she was, she still said, "Go back to school before 1. It's just delaying the morning's lessons. My guilt in my heart will be smaller. Can you help me back up my notes?" "Sure. Thank you, Almighty Qin." This was the only conversation between the 2 of them after the 2 aunties arrived. Seeing that he had left, Shi Nianj stood by the door and watched his back. In fact, she felt a little regretful. If she hadn't asked him to return to school in the afternoon, if she hadn't asked him to leave, would he not have left so quickly? But she really didn't want him to waste his time here. Even if he didn't want to. Auntie Sue went upstairs to disinfect her room. When she came down, she saw that Shi Nianj was still standing in front of the door, thinking about something. She walked over and said, "Nian Nian, the room has been disinfected. Remember to ventilate it these few days, in case you catch a cold. What are you still standing here for? Hasn't your classmate already left?" "Nothing." Shi Nianj retracted her gaze. She did not dare to look at Auntie Sue's curious gaze, and returned to her room. The bowl and chopsticks that Qin Sighting had used became Shi Nianj's personal use. She used the same set every day when she ate at home. Although it seemed a little shameful, he still wanted to use it. Even when he was eating, he couldn't wait to hold it with both hands, afraid of knocking it or touching it. He was even more careful than the ancient ceramic bowls at home, that were worth 6 or 7 figures. After all, Qin Sighting had used it before. Shi Nianj personally washed the dishes. After washing them, she wiped them dry and placed them in a conspicuous position in the cupboard drawer. The phone in her pocket rang. She had sent a message to Qin Sighting half an hour ago, and he had only replied now, "Backup." After resting at home for 3 days, her fever finally subsided. Her mental state was much better, and she could return to school tomorrow. She had just sent a message to Qin Sighting to ask if he had helped her make a backup of her notes in class. Then he replied. Looking at the 3 words sent by Qin Sighting on her phone, Shi Nianj felt sweet in her heart. Perhaps it was because she had liked him for a long time, that she would find candy to eat. Now, every time she spoke to him or sent him a message, she would feel sweet from the bottom of her heart. Qin Sighting seemed to be different from before. Although he was still cold and spoke little, basically, no matter what she asked or sent, he would answer her directly. His expression in front of her was no longer expressionless and cold. In fact, there would be some changes, although the changes were not too big. And that day, he said that he was waiting for her. Shi Nianj clearly remembered that when the 2 of them first sat at the same table, Qin Sighting's expression was always cold, because there was another person by his side. She could tell how cold he was, and he really didn't want her to sit by his side. His occasional frown and impatient expression all showed his rejection at that time. And now, when she smiled at him or said a word, he would turn his head to look at her. His gaze would also land on her face. He would no longer avoid her. His gaze would also calmly look at her without much coldness. She could happily wait for him outside the school gates every day and go to school with him. She could sit together every day and look for him to read his notes, look at his papers, and ask him to help her analyze the big questions. Most importantly, he would actually wait for her under the tree. It seemed like he usually didn't talk much to others, especially to girls. There were too many girls who had a crush on him, but he really ignored them. He didn't even look at them. Just like how he rarely spoke to other girls, of course, he definitely wouldn't text other girls. However, Qin Sighting would reply to her messages. Now that she had recovered, she could lie down and roll around again. Shi Nianj ran back to the bedroom, and rolled around for a long time before she calmed down. When she slept at night, she was still thinking about how she had to wait for him under the tree early tomorrow morning, because he knew that she would return to school tomorrow. If she was late, would he wait for her again? Forget it. It was better for her to wait for him. She fell asleep with such a mood. When she woke up the next day, she was in a good mood. When she rushed under the tree to wait, she specially looked at the time. It was a few minutes earlier than she had arrived a few days ago. He would definitely see her when he passed by later. 2 minutes later, Shirniange heard the sound of a car nearby. She subconsciously turned back and suddenly saw the familiar black business car. It was the car that Qin Sighting's mother used last time. Her gaze shifted in that direction and saw that the car was parked between the tree and the school gate. The smile in her eyes gradually disappeared. Seeing this car, she knew without guessing. Qin Sighting probably wouldn't take this path today. Recently, it's really the ice age of the online literature world. I heard that many of my friends' books have been blocked and removed from the shelves. It's getting stricter and stricter. Qing's book has also been blocked for more than 100 chapters, because Emonwan's plot is too sweet and ambiguous. I'm still working hard to change it. I hugged my head and cried. Chapter 1474. As expected, Qin Sighting did not take this path at all today. She did not see a single person. Shirniange waited for a while. Seeing that a few minutes had passed, she picked up her phone and sent a message to Qin Sighting. Have you arrived at school? Qin Sighting recovered rather quickly. No. Shirniange, I saw that black business car again. You won't be walking here today, will you? Qin Sighting replied. Where are you? Shirniange, it's okay. I've already entered the school. You don't have to come over. With that, she raised her eyes to look at the business car again. She ignored it and walked toward the school gate. She heard her phone vibrate again and picked it up to take a look as she walked. Qin Sighting, don't move. I'll come over. She paused in her steps and abruptly turned back to look at her surroundings. She guessed that Qin Sighting was really on another road. She quickly took a photo of the school gate for him. I'm already in. You don't have to come over. I know you don't want to see the person in that car. I don't want to see you unhappy. See you in class later. After sending it, she quickly walked into the school building. Qin Sighting did not reply. She entered the class, put down her bag and walked out. She stood at the staircase for a while. This was the only way to enter the class. She could clearly wait for him to enter the class, but she wanted to come earlier, even if it was a second or a few seconds earlier. When Qin Sighting's figure appeared at the staircase below, Shirniange quickly waved at him happily. Qin Sighting, almighty Qin, the clean young man heard the noise and looked up from the staircase. He saw a girl in a school uniform waving at him with a smile on her face. She was no longer standing under the tree outside the school gate. Instead, she was standing at the staircase outside the classroom. She held the railing beside the staircase with one hand and waved at him with the other. Her smiling eyes were curved and full of joy. Coincidentally, the form teacher, Teacher Zhao, happened to walk up from behind Qin Sighting. The two of them walked up the stairs at almost the same time. When they heard Shirniange's words, they immediately stopped and raised their heads to look at her. The excited expression on Shirniange's face instantly froze. Her hand stopped in midair, and she grinned at Teacher Zhao. Teacher Zhao. Teacher Zhao's expression froze, and he glared at her, meaning for her to hurry back to class. Shirniange pursed her lips and secretly glanced at Qin Sighting. Seeing that he was still cold and indifferent, he did not even look at the teacher behind him. He just walked up as though nothing had happened. Under the teacher's glare, Shirniange quickly turned around and ran back to the class. Before she ran back, she even gave Qin Sighting a happy look. Qin Sighting saw this look. Teacher Zhao stood on the spot fuming. He stood there with one hand on his waist. He recalled Shirniange's extremely happy expression, and then recalled Qin Sighting's expression when he stopped to look up. It seemed like he was still a little focused. These two kids can't really be in love, right? They were already adults. It was very common for high school students to fall in love. Furthermore, these two were from the Qin family and the Shi family. He definitely could not control them. However, it was not long before the college entrance examination. If they fell in love now, what if it affected their studies? The key was that Shi Nianj really did not hide it. Back then, before she came to the third year of high school, she had also heard about her and Tang Xiao. However, when she heard the teachers in the office chatting and discussing, they said that the Tang family and the Shi family were cooperating. The two children became closer. It seemed like they were not very intimate in school. They did not even hold hands when they often ate together. So the teachers turned a blind eye. However, Shi Nianj clearly did not treat Qin Sighting that way. This girl seemed to like Qin Sighting very much. After being a teacher for so many years, he had seen many stories of secret love and open love, especially Qin Sighting. He was definitely a dragon among men. There were many young ladies who liked him, but Shi Nianj seemed to really have the ability to make him stop and take a second look. If these two kids really fell in love, shouldn't he, as a teacher, use some authority to warn them? At least wait until after the college entrance examination. However, after all, they were from the Shi family and the Qin family. He still had to protect his job. If he said anything harsh, it would not be good for him. He could not hit, say, or scold them. What should he do? Teacher Zhao was very distressed. He could only hope that these two children simply liked each other and did not do anything before the college entrance examination. While Teacher Zhao was fuming, Shi Nianj returned to the class and sat down. She raised her eyes and saw Qin Sighting enter. She raised her hand and greeted him with a sweet smile. Teacher Zhao, I'm sorry. Qin Sighting walked over and sat down by her side. She leaned over and whispered, Almighty Qin, where are my notes? Qin Sighting glanced at her and handed the pink notebook that belonged to her desk. Shi Nianj quickly picked it up and flipped through it. She saw that there were a few pages in her notebook that were filled with Qin Sighting's handwriting. She instantly held the notebook and giggled happily. Shi Nianj was also big-hearted. After attending class for a while, she forgot about seeing the car in the morning. Qin Sighting did not mention it either. She did not know if he had taken a detour in the morning, or if he had really gone under the tree. Forget it. In any case, he seemed to know everything. There was nothing for her to worry about. For the entire morning, Shi Nianj would occasionally look at the pages of words in her notebook. As she had read too much, she had actually memorized all the lessons she had missed in the past few days. She even took the opportunity to look at Qin Sighting's own handwriting after class. After comparing the notes for the past few days, she realized that his own notes were still in his usual style. It was especially difficult to look at them. However, the notes he had backed up for her were all simple and introductory. She could easily understand them and absorb them into her brain. After looking at them a few more times, it was as though she could remember the essence of them. As a result, in the past few days, she had only read the notes a few times. It was as though she had made up for it. She did not miss anything at all. He actually knew how she usually listened in class and took notes. He actually knew that she could remember it in this way. Until the afternoon, Shi Nianj was still admiring her notebook in satisfaction. While Qin Sighting was not paying attention, she secretly used a red pen to mark a few red hearts and two-way red heart arrows at the bottom of the pages he had written. Qin Sighting saw that she was secretly writing and drawing on the notebook. He glanced at her indifferently. Shi Nianj covered the notebook to prevent him from looking at her. She only smiled sweetly. Chapter 1475. After finishing the painting, Shi Nianj sat there in satisfaction and admired it for a while. Then she sighed. The person she liked was sitting by her side. This feeling was really wonderful. There were still 2 more classes before school ended. There were activities in school tonight, so there was no need to study at night. She could leave early. Shi Nianj felt quite regretful that she couldn't enter the school gates with Qin Sighting in the morning. After school, she simply walked with him from the back. Initially, Qin Sighting thought that she was only here to buy something from the supermarket on the way here, and would leave after buying it. In the end, he realized that she did not enter the supermarket, but still took the same route as him. In fact, Nianj had found this road a few days ago when she was resting at home and bored. She realized that she could go home from the main road in front of the school's entrance. Although it was a little longer than taking the road beside her, it was not much different. It would only take her more than 10 minutes to walk. However, this way, she could walk with Qin Sighting. There were many students on the main road in the middle. Nianj followed him for a long time, but was too embarrassed to go to the front. She just walked slowly behind him. Qin Sighting walked too fast. In fact, it was difficult for her to catch up. Gradually, she suddenly realized that his footsteps had slowed down. She first looked at his back, then saw that he had stopped and turned back to look at her. Seeing that he had discovered her so quickly, Nianj was a little surprised. She suddenly turned around without thinking, and did not react for a moment. For a long time, she was conflicted about how to be firm with Qin Sighting without appearing too deliberate. After thinking for a while, she turned around and saw that Qin Sighting was still standing there looking at her. She could only bite the bullet and walk over. "Hi, what a coincidence," Qin Sighting asked her. "Where are you going?" "Home." Nianj quickly moved closer to his side. "Home." Qin Sighting raised his brows coldly. It was clear that he was not convinced by her reason. "I mean, the road beside the school has to pass through the middle street. There have been a lot of people on the street recently, and there's a road that's being repaired. It's bumpy, and it's very difficult to walk. It's almost dark now. There are few people on that road, and it's not safe. I'm thinking of changing to the main road. Anyway, when we get close to Lishui Villa, there happens to be a specially built road that leads directly to my home." Qin Sighting did not interrupt her explanation. He just glanced at her again and nodded. Nodding meant that he agreed with what she said, or that he accepted what she said. In the end, he did not refute her or expose her. From that day onwards, Nianj would follow Qin Sighting at night, and walk with him for 10 to 20 minutes. If she walked fast, it would only be 10 minutes. If she walked slowly, it would be 20 minutes. However, usually, they did not talk much, because they could not find much to talk about. Furthermore, it was a topic that only one person could talk about. Qin Sighting did not talk much. She knew this very well. Finally, she heard the bell that said that school was over. However, she had to study until 9 o'clock tonight. By then, the sky would already be dark. Usually, if it was so late, Uncle Qin would come to pick her up, or she would take a taxi back to Lishui Villa. But tonight, she still wanted to leave with Qin Sighting. Hearing the bell ring at 9:30 p.m., Nianj quickly packed her school bag and sat inside waiting for Qin Sighting to get up. Every day, she packed her school bag faster than Qin Sighting, because she knew that if she was slow, Qin Sighting might not wait for her. Although she didn't know if he would wait, she didn't want him to wait. This was too risky. She didn't dare to try. After leaving the school gate, she still had to take a turn. After walking with him for 20 minutes, there were very few people on the road behind. Every day, she would walk with him on the innermost right side because Qin Sighting didn't like crowds. Occasionally, when someone brushed past him, he would avoid them. He was indeed the Qin Sighting who didn't like to touch others. "It's so cold today." As Nianj spoke, she withdrew her hands into her sleeves. "It's already April, but it's still so cold. This spring is so long. Almighty Qin, you have to wear more clothes. I don't think you usually wear thick clothes. I remember that you didn't wear thick clothes in winter either. Be careful not to catch a cold. Look, the last time I caught a cold, I had a high fever. It was so uncomfortable." Qin Sighting said, "It's not cold." "Why isn't it cold? Your hands are clearly cold." Nianj recalled that when she accidentally touched his hand on the table during class, she felt that his hand was sometimes warm and sometimes cold. On the other hand, every time she blushed and her heart raced, she felt that her blood was flowing to her hand, and she felt that her fingers were burning. Qin Sighting did not reply. Nianj had finally found a topic to talk about before it ended. She was also afraid that if she spoke too much, Qin Sighting would find it noisy, so she quietly followed him for a while. Seeing that they were about to reach the corner of the intersection, Nianj said, "A few days ago, Teacher Zhao asked me to go to his office to tutor more. In the future, he might ask me to stay in the office during self-study time. I think my grandfather said something to the teacher to ask me to improve my grades. Actually, I want to enter medical school. According to my current mock exam results, I can actually pass. However, the teacher has been especially strict with me recently, so I can't study with you." What she said was true. Originally, she wanted to rely on medical school. With her current grades and scores, she could actually get in smoothly. However, Grandpa probably didn't want her to neglect cultural studies, because she wanted to study medicine. So he told the teacher about it, which caused the teacher to keep an eye on her recently. Qin Sighting answered softly, "All right. Then tomorrow." Nianj was actually a little embarrassed, but she felt that although he did not reject her leaving with him, he did not seem to have anything to talk to her about. She had persisted for so many days, but his response could be counted on one hand. Although she could find some sweetness and joy from it, it was inevitable that she would suffer some blows. However, she still braced herself and asked, "Can I wait for you under the tree outside the school tomorrow morning? I can still leave with you tomorrow night, right?" Qin Sighting answered very quickly. Without thinking, he nodded. "All right." These two "all right" were too wonderful. If Qin Sighting wasn't right in front of her, Nianj would have jumped up. He did not reject her, and it was clear that he was used to her existence. "See you tomorrow." Nianj could not suppress her happiness. She smiled and waved at him, turning to leave. She calculated in her heart. Every night, they would walk together for 20 minutes, and in the morning, they would spend a lot of time alone. Chapter 1476. Nianj turned around and walked toward the path with few people. She had only taken a few steps when her phone suddenly vibrated in her pocket. She stopped and picked it up to take a look. Qin Sighting. "Just to walk with me for 20 minutes, you have to spend 20 minutes walking on an almost empty path every day. It's dark and the road is long. Aren't you afraid?" Nianj's heart skipped a beat. Was he starting to expose her? Did he think that her actions were unnecessary? She lowered her head and was about to reply when she suddenly felt someone approaching from behind. She subconsciously turned her head and saw that Qin Sighting had walked over at some point in time. He walked to her side and looked down at her. "There's no need to reply. I'll send you back." Nianj opened her mouth in surprise. "Ah!" By the time she reacted, Qin Sighting had already walked in front of her. She was stunned for a long while before she quickly jogged to catch up. "Almighty Qin, are you sending me home?" She smiled so widely that she could not close her mouth. Why? It's really too far for you to walk back after sending me back. It's very late. It's not safe for you to be alone." "I'm fine. There aren't many people on this road. I think even if there are bad people, they won't walk on such a deserted road," Nianj said with a chuckle. Nianj said with a chuckle, but although she said that, her body was very honest. She followed closely behind him. Qin Sighting suddenly stopped in his tracks. She was caught off guard and almost bumped into his back. She quickly stopped and raised her head to look at him. The clean youth stared into her eyes. "Are you usually so careless? There aren't even any streetlights on this road. How are you going to walk back?" "I have a flashlight in my bag. My phone can also light up." He pursed his lips and did not speak. He looked at the pitch-black road around him and walked forward without saying anything. Why did she feel like he was angry? Don't be angry. She was happy. Nianj quickly followed him. She suddenly took the opportunity to tug on his sleeve. Seeing that he did not pull his hand back, she tugged at his sleeve and said, "It's indeed very dark. I can't even see the road clearly. Can I just hold on to you like this?" There was no response, nor did he wave it away. Very good. He didn't walk very fast, so she could keep up. However, he was still tall, so if he walked slowly, she would have to walk faster. If she walked too fast, she wouldn't be able to control the strength in her hands. Her fingers suddenly fell out of his sleeves. However, In that instant, he suddenly stopped and looked back at her. It wasn't until she hurriedly pulled on his sleeves that he retracted his gaze and continued walking. The next day, Shirnianj woke up early. Or, it could be said that after she was sent back by Qin's sighting last night, she almost did not sleep. Her heart was filled with this person, and she kept thinking about this person. Before 5 in the morning, she did not want to sleep. She got up and heated milk and bread for herself. After quickly eating, she took her school bag and went downstairs. She had left too early today, and would probably have to wait for him outside the school for half an hour. It was still quite cold outside. Shirnian shrunk her shoulders and leaned against the tree, thinking that it would be summer in a month. It would probably only be cold for a few days. Soon, even her school uniform would have to be changed into summer clothes. She then thought about how she seemed to have come out a little early, and felt that she had been silly recently. However, she couldn't care less. She just felt that even if she stood here for half an hour in advance, she would be very happy during this half an hour of waiting. Time finally passed bit by bit. Half an hour later, she saw Qin's sightings figure appear at the intersection in front of her. Shirnianj immediately smiled. It was a feeling that all the flowers in her heart had bloomed. Shirnianj had never experienced this kind of longing for a person's experience before. But this feeling was really good and comfortable. She felt that her entire heart was soft. Almighty Qin, when she approached, she waved her hand and greeted with a smile. Good morning. Qin sighting looked at her, his gaze calm and warm. Shirnianj saw the corners of his lips curl up slightly. He said, "Good morning." Did he just smile? Did he smile at her? Shirnianj stood rooted to the spot, somewhat stunned. She stared at his face and did not move. Her mouth was still slightly open. She looked a little silly. The smile on Qin sighting's lips widened. He looked into her eyes and repeated, "Good morning." This time, the smile in his eyes was even more obvious. Shirnianj blinked and then nodded vigorously. Good morning. Good morning, Almighty Qin." She spoke too quickly. She looked like a little rabbit that was about to jump out of its cage. Oh my God, Qin sighting smiled at her. His smile was too good-looking. Oh my God, oh my God. She felt that her blood was about to be dried by his smile in an instant. Earlier, when she saw him walk under the tree, she felt that the flowers in her heart had bloomed early. Now, the flowers in her heart had almost exploded into fireworks crackling. She hadn't waited for half an hour in the morning for nothing. If she had known that waiting for him for half an hour would allow Qin sighting to smile at her, she wouldn't have waited for half an hour. After all, she couldn't sleep last night. She should have come to wait in the morning. His smile made Shirnianj dumbfounded. Even when she entered the school and the teaching building, she could not say a word. Nian Nian. Shirnianj heard someone calling her from behind. Before she could turn back, she felt her arm suddenly being pulled back by a force. She turned around and saw that Tang Xiao had actually run over early in the morning. Seeing that she was walking beside Qin sighting, he quickly went forward and pulled her over. She was caught off guard and almost bumped into Tang Xiao's arms. It wasn't easy for her to stabilize herself and quickly dodged to the side. She frowned and suddenly turned back to look at Qin sighting. She saw that Qin sighting was calmly looking at Tang Xiao's hand on her wrist. With just a glance, Shirnianj quickly pulled her hand out. Tang Xiao, what are you doing? Shirnianj felt an inexplicable anger in her heart. She turned her eyes. The last time your dad came to stop me at the school gate, I should have told him very clearly. What do you want? I don't mean anything else. I know you're determined not to be with me. But Nian Nian, my grandfather's birthday is next week. He invited all the big families in High City to hold a birthday party at Diyao Hotel. The Shi family is also invited. Will you go? Tang Xiao saw her unhappy expression and did not dare to say more. He could only go straight to the point. However, his expression was filled with concern that she had actually walked in with Qin sighting. Chapter 1477. Tang Xiao's grandfather's birthday? Shirnian's heart skipped a beat. Although the Tang family had some reputation in High City, the Shi family's business had been booming in recent years. They were like a dark horse in High City and were widely praised by the industry. There were countless partners who came with money. The reason why they agreed to cooperate with the Tang family was because Tang Xiao's grandfather had done the Shi family a favor. On account of this, the Shi and Tang families were closer. Since Tang Xiao had mentioned his grandfather, no matter how unwilling Shi Nianj was, she could not fall out with him on the spot, even though she wished she could kick the central air conditioner to the horizon. Even if the Shi family was invited, my parents aren't in the country. As a child, I can't represent my parents to attend your grandfather's birthday banquet, Shi Nianj said coldly. Shi Nianj said coldly, when I go back tonight, I'll call my parents to inform them. They should send some birthday gifts back. You can just inform my parents about this. There's no need to tell me. After speaking, she turned to see that Qin Sighting was still standing there. He did not leave, nor did he have any intention of rushing her. However, he was clearly waiting for her. Tang Xiao also noticed this and turned to look at Qin Sighting. He immediately felt even more upset. This iceberg rarely interacted with others, but he had only come to class 6 a few times. These few times, he could almost see Shi Nianj walking with Qin Sighting. Tang Xiao immediately felt that this sense of crisis was somewhat obvious. He suddenly held her wrist again. Come out with me. It's almost time for morning self-study. Our form teacher is almost here. Where am I going? Shi Nianj quickly shook him off. All right, Tang Xiao. If there's anything, text me. Don't make me late for morning self-study, okay? Seeing that Qin Sighting was still standing there silently waiting for her, and that Shi Nianj was in a hurry to go to his side, Tang Xiao frowned and lowered his voice to ask in a low voice that only she could hear. What's going on between you and Qin Sighting? Why are you so close? He's my desk mate. It's normal for us to be close. Besides, I don't think there's any need for me to explain to you. Shi Nianj really couldn't stand his pestering. Tang Xiao, do you have to make me say the ugliest things? Don't you know how we started walking together? Don't you know how it ended? There was no emotional foundation in the first place. If it's over, then it's over. It's really meaningless for you to keep pestering me like this. I'm not pestering you. I really like you, Nian Nian. Tang Xiao wanted to hold her hand. This time, Shi Nianj decided to suddenly escape from his side. She took 2 steps to the side and moved closer to Qin Sighting. Although she did not grab his arm or tug at his sleeve, she instinctively hid behind him. Big brother, just because you like me doesn't mean that I have to like you. Just like how you like to carry the prettiest girl in your class to the infirmary and take care of her for an entire afternoon, it doesn't mean that I have to be a saint and applaud your kindness. People were different, especially when they had different viewpoints. It was even more impossible for them to be together. That would only torture each other. Shi Nianj was too lazy to speak, but her expression was filled with the distance between her and Tang Xiao. Qin Sighting stood in place without moving. Tang Xiao had just taken 2 steps in this direction when he suddenly saw Qin Sighting reach out and hold Shi Nianj's hand. At the same time, he turned back and said as though there was no one else here. Can we go in now? Shi Nianj was also stunned by the sudden warmth of his palm. She looked at him in a daze. Qin Sighting retracted his hand, but at this moment, he placed his hand on her back. It could not be considered a hug, but it looked especially intimate. Just like that, he placed one hand on her back in a protective manner and protected her as she entered the classroom. When the 2 of them entered, they did not look back, but Tang Xiao's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Damn it, was he cuckolded by Qin Sighting? What was Shi Nianj's expression just now? Was she actually shocked and shy? She had never had such an expression when she was with him. She was clearly a calm and rational young lady in front of him. Her personality could not hide her liveliness and cuteness, but at least she had never been as shy as before. She actually liked Qin Sighting. Tang Xiao was furious, but he noticed that the teacher of class 6 was walking over from the office. Seeing a teacher coming over, he turned around with a dark expression and picked up his phone to call Shi Nianj as he walked toward his class. Sorry, The number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later. He called again, but it was still the same. Tang Xiao put down his phone with a dark expression. He had indeed been blacklisted by her long ago. Even now, she had not released him. Qin Sighting placed his hand on her back and walked into the class with her. There were already many students in the class. After entering, he put his hand down without a trace and signaled her with his gaze to sit down and not waste time in front of the door. Nian's mind was still in a daze. She sat down and turned to look at him. Qin Sighting glanced at her again as though asking, "Do you have something to say?" She immediately stopped talking and didn't ask anything, but her heart was pounding. She didn't want to be too arrogant, but why did she feel that Qin Sighting seemed to, however, she didn't have the chance to think too much. The form teacher had already entered. After entering, he called out a few students who had fought in the school field last night. There was actually Hao Xiuxia. After being scolded by the teacher, several students were called to the office by the teacher with a cold face, and the class monitor was ordered to watch over everyone's morning self-study. Although the teacher was not present at the moment, the atmosphere in the entire class was so strict that no one dared to breathe. Thankfully, Qin Sighting was not affected at all. Nian sat inside him. On her left was him, and on her right was the wall. She always had a sense of security that was not disturbed by the outside world. Last night, because he had sent her home, she was too happy and did not sleep well. Now that he was by her side, she inexplicably relaxed and felt very sleepy. During the morning self-study session, everyone was very quiet. She lowered her head and wrote for a while before she could not take it anymore. She wanted to lean on the table and nap for a few minutes, but unknowingly, she fell asleep. She slept until the morning self-study session ended. When the bell rang, she woke up with a start. She opened her eyes and raised her head to see that everyone had left. It should be time for class to end. She wanted to sleep for another 10 minutes and wake up after class. She then leaned on the table again. She was really sleepy. She closed her eyes and fell asleep again. Chapter 1478. Qin Sighting saw that she had fallen asleep again and glanced sideways at her. He saw that she had buried her face in her arms and was sleeping soundly. She looked like she wanted to sleep here for the entire day. The bell rang. It was the first class of the morning, and all the students rushed in from outside. Hao Xiuxia, who had been called to the office by the teacher for a lecture, also rushed in. When he sat down, he saw that Nian was still sleeping on her stomach. He quickly reached out to pat her awake. However, just as he stretched out his hand, it was suddenly blocked by a hand that rose from the air. Hao Xiuxia was surprised. He looked at the person beside Nian and suddenly received Qin Sighting's gaze. There's no need to call her. Ah, Almighty Qin actually took the initiative to speak to him. Hao Xiuxia was stunned for a few seconds before quickly retracting his hand. However, he still glanced in disbelief at Nian, who was still sleeping on her stomach. Zhao Xiaoqing was also very surprised. It was already class, but Almighty Qin did not allow her to wake Nian up. He even blocked her. It seemed like he could not bear to wake her up. Could it be that Nian had finally seen the bright moon? After guarding this iceberg for more than half a year, had she finally melted it? Nian slept very soundly. She did not even hear the bell ringing. She had been sleeping on her stomach, and no one woke her up. In her sleep, she felt that these 10 minutes seemed a little long, but she was confident that someone would wake her up during class, so she allowed herself to continue sleeping. In her daze, she seemed to hear the teacher speaking, but she could not hear clearly. In the end, she was pulled back by her sleepiness. The first class was chemistry. The chemistry teacher saw Nian sleeping and frowned. He picked up half a piece of chalk and was about to throw it at her to wake her up. In the end, Qin Sighting sat by her side and glanced at the podium from afar, causing the chemistry teacher's brows to twitch. Why did the Qin family's crown prince look like he was warning her? Was he planning to let Nian continue sleeping? The chemistry teacher coughed and did not speak further. He began the lesson, But no teacher wished for a student to sleep in his class. At the beginning, his voice was louder than usual, but Shirnianj was still unconscious. He then saw Qin Sighting place the books on Shirnianj's table neatly in front of her, blocking the light in front of her table. It was as though he could isolate some sound for no reason. Seeing this, the chemistry teacher gave up and returned to his normal tone to continue the lesson. The third class was the form teacher's class. After the second class, Qin Sighting received a call and went out. Seeing that class was about to start, they were instinctively afraid of the form teacher, old Zhao. They quickly took advantage of Qin Sighting's absence to wake Shirnianj up. Shirnianj rarely slept in class. Although her grades were not top-notch, she was definitely one of the students who was serious enough to make the teacher like her. Today, it was rare for her to sleep from morning self-study to the last 2 classes. She had almost made up for her sleep. Suddenly, she was woken up by Hao Xiuxia. She sat up and looked forward in a daze. She realized that it was still time for class to end. Could it be that class was about to start? She woke up. Hey Nian Nian, you've already slept for a morning self-study session and 2 classes. The next class is old Zhao's. Don't sleep anymore, Hao Xiuxia said from behind. When Shirnianj heard this, a chill ran down her spine. She abruptly turned to look at the little fatty behind her. I slept for 2 classes. Hao Xiuxia nodded and then said with an admiring expression, You're really good. Earlier, the chemistry teacher and the language teacher didn't wake you up. But I guess it's because Almighty Qin was sitting next to you. Otherwise, the teacher's chalk would definitely hit your head. Shirnianj was stunned for a moment before turning to look at Zhao Xiaoqing. She saw that Zhao Xiaoqing nodded hard at her, which was equivalent to confirming Hao Xiuxia's words. She quickly picked up her phone to check the time. It was really about to start the 3rd class. Oh my god, she actually slept for so long. Didn't anyone wake her up for so long? Why didn't you wake me up during class? She turned back and asked. Zhao Xiaoqing glanced at Hao Xiuxia, and Hao Xiuxia also glanced at Zhao Xiaoqing. The 2 of them spread their hands. What's wrong? Seeing their expressions, Shirnianj felt that they had something to say. Your Almighty Qin didn't allow us to wake you up, Zhao Xiaoqing said meaningfully. Zhao Xiaoqing said meaningfully. So Shai's demon claws have already reached your back, but Almighty Qin stopped them. He said not to wake you up and told you to sleep well. Ah, Shirnianj felt that she was probably still asleep. Otherwise, why would she hear such words? Did Qin Sighting not allow others to wake her up? Then what did she look like when she slept? Did you leave a mark on your face? Did she sleep until her face turned red? Did he see how she slept in class? Now that she had slept enough and her mental state was better, she sat there in a daze as though she had not woken up. The bell for the 3rd class rang. When Qin Sighting returned, he saw that she was already awake. His gaze first landed on her, and then on Hao Xiuxia behind her. Hao Xiuxia quickly raised his book to cover his face to prevent Almighty Qin from settling the score with him. He was indeed the one who woke Shirnianj up. Zhao Xiaoqing did not dare to speak from the back. She quietly glanced in Shirnianj's direction and saw that she was still sitting there in a daze. I slept for so long. Shirnianj turned to look at Qin Sighting, who had quietly sat down. 1 morning self-study session and 2 classes. Hun. Qin Sighting looked at her. Why didn't you wake me up? Being looked at by him like this, Shirnianj felt a little embarrassed. I didn't sleep well last night, and woke up early this morning, so I was especially sleepy. In the morning, I couldn't control myself and fell asleep. Originally, I only wanted to sleep for morning self-study, but I didn't expect that I wouldn't wake up during class. Qin Sighting did not answer. He only placed a bottle of hot milk that she usually bought at the school supermarket on her table, and said, Finish it. Shirnianj was even more shocked. She woke up too early in the morning. Usually, between the 1st and 2nd classes, she would buy milk for the supermarket auntie to heat up and bring it back to drink. He actually remembered her habit. He knew that she did not drink milk in the morning, and actually went to buy it for her after class. She suddenly did not know what to say. Suddenly she felt like crying. She, Shirnianj, was a tough woman who would not shed a single tear for years. At this moment, she actually felt like crying. What was wrong with her today? Or rather, what was wrong with her recently? Drink, Qin Sighting said again. All right, I'll drink. Shi Nianj quickly picked up the milk. It was indeed the brand she usually drank. There were many brands of milk in the school supermarket. She usually drank this brand, and he also bought this brand. It was a familiar taste, but it was also a warmth that she was not familiar with. Chapter 1479. As she drank the milk, she quietly raised her head to look at the podium. Teacher Zhao came in to prepare for class. She quickly took 2 sips. Drink slowly. It's a little hot, Qin Sighting said. You. But the teacher is here, Shi Nianj said softly as she swallowed the hot milk in her mouth. I'm fine, Qin Sighting answered again. If he said it was fine, then it was really fine. Teacher Zhao only glanced at her. Seeing that she was about to finish the milk, he only glared at her, reminding her to drink it quickly. This time, Shi Nianj drank even faster. After drinking it, because her mouth was hot, she quickly stuck out her tongue and took 2 light breaths. Then she turned to look at Qin Sighting with a smile. Qin Sighting turned to see her sticking out her tongue and smiling mischievously at him. His gaze landed on her slightly red lips, and he retracted his gaze. His gaze landed on the podium. Shi Nianj did not feel that there was anything wrong. She retracted her gaze and quickly put down the empty milk bottle, preparing to focus on the class. However, the teacher was teaching in front of her. She could not help but think that if in Qin Sighting's heart, she was the same as everyone else, she would definitely smash a milk bottle on his head and repeat everything that had happened today. She would let everyone know that Qin Sighting was really, really good to her. Taking the opportunity when the teacher turned to write on the blackboard, Shi Nianj tilted her head and leaned close to Qin Sighting to whisper, Did you already remember the brand of milk I like to drink? He actually answered. Although it was very soft and light, he really answered. Shi Nianj instantly felt her entire heart tremble. It trembled until it was sore and painful. It was the indescribable feeling of being smashed down by joy. She felt everything. Right now, she could not think about why he would remember this, or why he would go out to buy milk for her because she was sleeping. He even carefully asked the supermarket auntie to heat it up and bring it back. She just felt that everyone's misunderstanding of such a warm person like Qin Sighting was too deep. How was he cold? He was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. He was definitely a super invincible warm man. He was really worthy of being liked, okay? Those female classmates who were secretly in love with him really had the same taste as her. After class, Shi Nianj lowered her head to look at the empty milk bottle she had placed below. She felt as though she was about to completely fall into Qin Sighting's hands. He likes me, right? At the end of the day, he did not reject her nor did he hate her. Was he used to her? Or did he like her a little? Or was it just because of the friendship between deskmates? After all, they had been sitting together for more than a semester, more than half a year. When they went to the school cafeteria for lunch, Zhao Xiaoqing raised her hand and waved it in front of Shi Nianj's eyes. Come back to your senses. Almighty Qin's cup of milk has completely taken your soul away. You've been foolishly happy all morning. Shi Nianj looked at her and smiled. She picked up her chopsticks to eat. It looks like it's going to rain tonight. Look at the sky. It's been cloudy for a few hours. Zhao Xiaoqing turned to look out the window of the cafeteria. It's almost summer. It's almost the rainy season. Only then did Shi Nianj remember. I woke up too early in the morning and didn't watch the weather forecast. I forgot to bring an umbrella. Then why don't you ask the driver to drive you back? Don't walk on the road tonight. It's been cloudy all day. It'll probably rain heavily. We'll see. It might not rain. Don't catch a cold again. The last time you caught a cold, you took a few days off. It's getting closer and closer to the college entrance examination. If you take another leave, Teacher Zhao will really talk to you. Shi Nianj did not speak. She just glanced at the weather outside. She wondered if Qin Sighting had brought an umbrella. It seemed like men would not be so careful and meticulous, as to specially look at the weather forecast in the morning. If it was him, he probably wouldn't look at it either. He probably didn't bring it either. As expected, it began to rain outside in the afternoon, but it was not too heavy. It was just a shower. Nianj was still praying that it would not rain after school. In the end, the rain continued until the sky turned dark. At 9:30 p.m., although the rain was not heavy, it was not officially summer yet. The temperature was a little cold, and there were still some raindrops floating outside. It was already so late, and Uncle Qin had a lot of things to do recently. Usually, when her parents were not in the country, Uncle Qin would only occasionally come over to take care of her. Most of the time, he would be on half vacation. However, as long as she called, he would immediately come over. It was already so late. Uncle Qin was probably at home with his wife and child. She really did not want to disturb him. She followed Qin sighting out. When they arrived outside the school, a cold breeze blew past. Before she could shiver, a school uniform was suddenly draped over her body. This school uniform also had a faint mint smell that belonged to Qin sighting. She was very familiar with this smell, and remembered it after smelling it once. Nianj turned around, and saw that Qin sighting was only wearing a light-colored short-sleeved t-shirt. The school uniform had already been draped over her. "Aren't you cold?" She quickly wanted to return the clothes to him, but the moment she took them off, she felt that it was indeed a little cold outside. "Quickly put them back on." Qin sighting did not take it. He had already walked down the stairs in front of the teaching building and calmly said, "Wear them. I don't need it. I'm wearing clothes inside, and I'm also wearing the school uniform. Don't just let me wear them. Don't catch a cold." Nianj did not walk as fast as him. She jogged and quickly chased after him. "Quick, I'll give you the clothes." Qin sighting did not take it. He only glanced back at her. With just a glance, Nianj's hand paused. She immediately obediently put the clothes on herself, and then looked at him. Only then did she see that the temperature in his eyes had eased. In fact, she had been sleeping in the morning, and thinking about what had happened in the morning in the afternoon. She had hardly looked at Qin sighting. Now that she was walking by his side, although it was still drizzling, it should be fine if she did not hold an umbrella. The two of them walked together, but when they reached the school gate, he stopped and said, "Didn't you call the driver to pick you up?" "I forgot." She blinked. "It's raining. Don't walk so far tonight. Take a taxi back." He gestured with his chin to the taxi on the road ahead. Nianj actually wanted to walk home with him like last night, but the weather last night was good. It was raining today, so she couldn't let him send her back in the rain. Even if he was willing, she couldn't do that, so she immediately answered, "All right, I'll take a taxi back. What about you?" Qin sighting did not answer. From the corner of her eye, she saw the familiar black business car parked there. Nianj was immediately surprised. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."